3 loud knocks rattled my front door. Carrying the arrogance of someone who already owned the place, I opened it to find a glossy brochure of my own condo shoved in my face. Listed for $1.2 million. The sellers were my parents. I thought it was a mistake until I ran the title record. My blood ran cold at the sight of a deed recorded yesterday, transferring my home to them with a signature I never wrote. My name is Angelina Edwards. I am 32 years old, and until 40 minutes ago, I believed I was the sole and undisputed owner of a 2-bedroom oceanfront condominium in Cape Astor, Florida. I work as a compliance analyst for a risk management firm, a job that requires a tedious addiction to detail and an absolute intolerance for ambiguity. My life is built on paper trails, audit logs, and verified signatures. I do not like surprises. I certainly do not like 3 loud, authoritative knocks on my front door at 2 p.m. on a Tuesday. I was dressed in oversized sweatpants and a faded college t-shirt, my hair pulled back in a messy clip, holding a half-empty mug of lukewarm coffee. When I opened the door, the contrast between me and the people standing in my hallway was sharp enough to cut glass. There were 5 of them. At the front stood a woman who radiated the aggressive polish of a high-end real estate agent. Her blonde hair was sprayed into a helmet of perfection. Her blazer was a shade of white that dared you to spill something on it, and her teeth were blinding. Behind her stood 2 couples. They were dressed in what I call resort casual wealth: linen shirts, loafers without socks, designer sunglasses propped on their heads, and an air of impatient entitlement. They looked at me, then at the number on my door, and then back at the agent with confusion. "Good afternoon," the agent said, her voice a practiced melody of professional warmth. She did not wait for me to speak. She stepped forward, expecting me to step back. "We are here for the 2:00 private showing. I believe we are right on time." I did not step back. I planted my bare feet firmly on the cool tile of my entryway and held the door handle with a grip that turned my knuckles white. I blocked the entrance with my body. "There is no showing scheduled," I said. My voice was flat. "This unit is not for sale." The agent's smile faltered for a fraction of a second. A glitch in her programming, before resetting to a patronizing beam. She reached into her leather tote bag and pulled out a glossy, heavy stock folder. She thrust it toward me as if she were handing a child a report card. "Oh, honey, I know it is difficult," she said, her tone dripping with a sickly sweetness that made my stomach turn. "Moving on is always hard. Your parents told me you might be a little emotional today, but we have some very serious buyers here who have flown in specifically to see the ocean views." I looked at the folder in her hand. On the cover was a professional photograph of my living room, my beige sofa, my grandfather's vintage telescope by the window, my sanctuary. Printed in elegant, gold-embossed font across the bottom were the words, "Luxury oceanfront, living at Mariner's Key," listed at $1,200,000. My breath hitched, but I forced my face to remain a mask of boredom. I took the folder from her hand. I opened it. I ignored the photos of my kitchen and the flowery description of the amenities. I looked for the data. I looked for the names. Sellers: Victor and Celeste Langford, my parents. The world seemed to tilt on its axis, sliding sideways into a surreal nightmare. My parents were selling my home, the home my grandfather, Harold Edwards, had deeded to me specifically to keep it out of their grasping, image-obsessed hands. "I see," I said. I pulled my phone from my pocket. "Do you have the listing agreement on you?" The agent sighed, a small puff of annoyance. "We are on a tight schedule. If you could just step aside so we can—" "The agreement," I interrupted. I did not raise my voice. I lowered it. "Show me the signature page. Now." She blinked, surprised by the sudden shift in my demeanor. I was no longer the disheveled daughter in sweatpants. I was the analyst demanding a compliance report, flustered. She opened a file on her tablet and turned the screen toward me. "It is standard procedure," she said defensively. "Victor and Celeste signed the exclusive right to sell agreement 48 hours ago. I held up my phone and took a high-resolution photo of the screen, capturing the digital signatures, the date, and the agent's license number. Then I stepped out into the hallway, forcing the group to shuffle back. I looked at the wall beside my door. There, clamped onto the railing of the walkway, was a gray electronic lockbox. I had not put it there. I had walked past that railing at 8 in the morning when I took the trash out, and it had not been there. "Who installed this?" I asked, pointing at the box. "I did, this morning," the agent said, her patience thinning. "Look, dear, I understand this is a transition, but you are being very obstructionist. Your mother gave me the access code to the main gate and said you would be out of the property by noon." "My mother," I repeated. I took a picture of the lockbox. I took a picture of the agent. I took a picture of the two couples staring at me with a mixture of pity and irritation. "Get out," I said. The agent stiffened. "Excuse me?" "This property is not for sale," I said, spacing out the words so there could be no misunderstanding. "I am the owner, Angelina Edwards, not Victor Langford, not Celeste Langford. If you or these people step 1 foot inside my apartment, I will have you arrested for criminal trespassing. If this listing is not removed from the MLS within 1 hour, I will file a complaint with the state licensing board for marketing a property without the owner's consent. Now, get out of my building." One of the buyers, a man with a deep tan and a gold watch that probably cost more than my car, let out a sharp, mocking laugh. He turned to his wife and shook his head. "Fun family," he muttered. "Let's go. Brenda, this energy is bad for the feng shui anyway." The agent looked at me, her face flushed with a mix of anger and embarrassment. She snatched the brochure back from my hand. "Your father assured me this was a done deal. You are making a huge mistake." "The mistake was yours," I said. "You didn't check the title." I stepped back inside and slammed the door. I threw the deadbolt. Then I engaged the secondary privacy lock. I leaned my forehead against the cool wood of the door and listened. I heard their footsteps retreating down the hall. I heard the elevator ding. Silence returned to the condo, but the peace was gone. My heart was hammering against my ribs like a trapped bird, but my mind was already shifting gears. Panic is useless. Panic is what they want. My parents thrive on emotional chaos because they know how to navigate it. They know how to twist tears and shouting matches into a narrative where they are the long-suffering victims of an ungrateful daughter. I walked to the kitchen island and set my phone down. My hand hovered over the contact for Mom. "Call her," a voice in my head screamed. "Scream at her. Ask her how she dares to list your home for $1.2 million behind your back. No, that is the trap. If I call, they will gaslight me. They will tell me it is for my own good. They will say they are just testing the market. They will say I am hysterical. They will say, 'We handle the finances, Angelina. You just worry about your little job.'" I withdrew my hand. I would not give them the satisfaction of a fight. I would give them something much worse. I would give them a consequence. I ran to my bedroom and threw off the sweatpants. I pulled on a pair of dark jeans, a crisp white button-down shirt, and a blazer. I needed to look like I belonged in a government office. I needed to look like someone who could not be dismissed. I grabbed my car keys and my wallet. As I walked out the door, I stopped at the grandfather clock in the hallway. My grandfather, Harold, had bought this condo 20 years ago. He was a man who hated ostentation. He hated the country club lifestyle my parents worshipped. He loved the ocean because it was honest. "The tide doesn't lie, Angie," he used to tell me. "It comes in, it goes out. It doesn't pretend to be anything else." When he got sick, he didn't tell my parents until the end. He called me. He had his lawyer, a sharp-eyed man named Evan, draft the deed transfer 6 months before he died. He sat me down on this very balcony and handed me the paperwork. "They will try to take it," he had said, his voice raspy but his eyes clear. "Victor and Celeste think they are entitled to everything I built because they share my last name. They think the law is something you negotiate at a dinner party." He had gripped my hand. his skin like dry paper. Listen to me, Angelina. If they take by words, you win by paper. If they use emotion, you use the statute. Never argue with a liar. Just show the record. Win by paper. I marched to the elevator, bypassing the lobby to avoid the security guard who had apparently let the realtor in. I went straight to the garage. I got into my sedan, a sensible 4-year-old model that my mother called an embarrassment, and reversed out of my spot. Cape Astor is a town of two faces. On the ocean side, it is manicured lawns, gated communities, and 7-figure condos, 3 miles inland. It is strip malls, gas stations, and the squat, beige brick buildings of the county government. I drove with mechanical precision, keeping my speedometer exactly at 45 miles per hour. My phone buzzed on the passenger seat. I glanced at it. A text message from Celeste. The realtor called. She is furious. Don't make a scene. Angelina, we have a buyer lined up who is willing to pay cash. We need this liquidity for Paige's trust fund. You are ruining your sister's future. I stared at the screen as I waited at a red light. There it was. The weaponized guilt. Paige, my younger sister. The golden child. The one who always needed help while I was expected to be self-sufficient. Paige, who had burned through 3 college degrees without finishing one. Paige, whose future was apparently more important than my present. They weren't just selling my home. They were liquidating my stability to fund their illusion of success. I did not reply. I took a screenshot of the message. Then I opened a folder on my phone app titled Evidence and saved it. The light turned green. I drove past the palm trees and the salt air, turning inland toward the county seat. The air conditioning in my car blasted cold air against my face. Drying the sweat that had formed on my hairline, I knew exactly where I was going. The county recorder's office, the place where truth is stored. My parents operated on the assumption that reality was flexible. They believed that if they acted like they owned the condo, if they listed it, if they charmed the HOA and the realtors, then they effectively owned it. They believed in the power of social performance, but the law does not care about performance. The law cares about the chain of title. I pulled into the parking lot of the government complex. It was a depressing slab of concrete baking in the Florida sun. I parked, grabbed my bag, and walked toward the entrance. My heels clicked rhythmically on the pavement, a sound like a ticking clock. I passed through the metal detector. I ignored the security guard's nod. I navigated the maze of hallways until I found the double doors marked Clerk of the Circuit Court and County Recorder. The room smelled of old carpet and printer toner. There were rows of computers and a long counter behind breathless glass. A woman with gray hair and reading glasses on a chain around her neck sat behind the counter, typing slowly. I approached her. I did not smile. I did not use the ingratiating tone the realtor had used. I placed my hands flat on the counter. "Can I help you?" she asked, looking up over her glasses. "I need to pull a title record," I said. My voice was steady, stripped of all emotion. "For parcel number 04229 at Mariner's Key." "You can look that up on the public terminals over there," she said, pointing vaguely to the side. "No," I said. "I need the official certified chain of title, and I need to see the most recent instrument recorded against the property." The clerk paused. Sensing the intensity radiating off me, she stopped typing. "Are you the owner?" she asked. "I am," I said. "But based on who was standing in my hallway 30 minutes ago, I have a feeling your computer might say something different." She frowned, pulled a keyboard closer to her, and typed in the parcel number. I watched her eyes scan the screen. I saw her eyebrows knit together. She squinted. She scrolled down, then scrolled back up. She stopped. The silence in the room stretched thin, vibrating with tension. "That is odd," she murmured, more to herself than to me. "What is odd?" I asked. Though I already knew the answer, I could feel it in the pit of my stomach, a cold, hard stone of realization. "Well," the clerk said, turning the monitor slightly away from me as if to protect me from the information. "I see a quitclaim deed recorded yesterday at 4:45 in the afternoon." My hands curled into fists on the countertop. Yesterday, while I was at work, while I was sitting in a Zoom meeting about compliance protocols, my parents were stealing my house. "Show me," I said. "It transfers ownership," the clerk continued, her voice hesitant. "From Angelina Edwards to Victor and Celeste Langford." "I did not sign that," I said. The clerk looked at me. She looked at the screen. She saw the absolute, terrifying conviction in my eyes. "Print it," I said. "Print everything. Right now." The printer behind the counter began to hum, a rhythmic mechanical grinding that sounded like a slow heartbeat. As I waited for the pages that would confirm my worst fears, my eyes drifted to the name on the screen that the clerk had just scrolled past. Harold Edwards, my grandfather. Seeing his name in the harsh fluorescent light of the government office made my chest ache with a sudden, sharp hollowness. To understand why I was standing in a county clerk's office with my hands shaking in rage, you have to understand Harold. And to understand Harold, you have to understand how much he despised my parents. Harold Edwards was a man who believed that silence was the most expensive luxury a person could own. He had made his money in commercial logistics, boring, unglamorous work involving shipping containers and freight schedules, and he had kept every dime of it quiet. He drove a 10-year-old pickup truck. He wore watches that told the time, not his net worth. He hated the way my mother, Celeste, and my father, Victor, lived their lives as if they were performing on a stage for an audience that did not care. The condo at Mariner's Quay was his escape pod. It was not the most expensive unit in the building. It did not have the wraparound penthouse terrace or the marble foyer that the real estate brochures bragged about. It was a modest 2-bedroom unit on the 4th floor, facing the Atlantic, but it was the only place where Harold could breathe. He used to sit on the balcony for hours, watching the gray water churn against the sand, not saying a word. I was the only one allowed to sit with him. In the ecosystem of the Langford family, I was the outlier. My parents were polished stones, smooth and hard, and obsessed with appearance. My younger sister, Paige, was the precious gem, fragile and glittering and constantly in need of a velvet cushion, and I was the mortar. I was the dull gray stuff that held the structure together but was never meant to be looked at. I was the practical one, the one who did her homework without being asked, the one who remembered birthdays, the one who became a compliance analyst at North Bay Risk Labs because the idea of codified rules and predictable outcomes soothed my anxiety. My parents did not understand me. They understood Paige. Paige, who dropped out of 3 different art schools. Paige, who needed a new car because the old one had bad energy. Paige, who was always one crisis away from moving back into the guest wing of the main house. Harold saw through all of it, 2 years ago, 6 months before the cancer finally stopped his heart. Harold summoned me to a meeting. He did not invite me to lunch. He did not ask me to come to the house for tea. He told me to meet him at the offices of Evan Rook and Partners, a boutique law firm in downtown that smelled of mahogany and old dust. I remember walking into the conference room. Harold was sitting at the head of the table, looking smaller than I had ever seen him. His skin was gray, but his eyes were sharp, scanning a document with the same intensity he used to inspect shipping manifests. Evan Rook, his attorney for 40 years, sat next to him with a fountain pen hovering over a stack of paper. "Sit down, Angelina," Harold had said. There was no preamble, no small talk about the weather. I sat. I smoothed the skirt of my work suit, feeling out of place. "Your mother thinks I am leaving the condo to the family trust," Harold said. His voice was raspy, damaged by years of cigars and the sickness in his lungs. "She has already hired an interior designer to redo the kitchen. She wants to knock down the wall between the living room and the den to make it more suitable for entertaining." He made a sound that was half laugh, half cough. "She hates that wall. I like that wall. It keeps the sun out of my eyes when I read." He pushed the stack of papers toward me. "I am not leaving it to the trust," he said. "If I leave it to the trust, Victor will leverage it to buy another boat within 6 months, and Celeste will turn it into a party venue for her charity committee. It will cease to be a home. It will become an asset. I looked down at the document. It was a warranty deed. I am deeding it to you, he said. Now, while I am still alive, while I am of sound mind and body, or at least sound enough to sign my name without shaking. I froze. I worked in risk management. I knew what this meant. This was not a bequest in a will that could be contested in probate court by angry relatives claiming undue influence. This was an inter vivos transfer, a finalized transaction. Grandpa, I started. Mom is going to— Your mother is going to be furious, he interrupted, a small, mischievous smile touching his lips. But she will not be able to do a damn thing about it, because by the time she finds out, the deed will already be recorded with the county. The property will be yours, fee simple, no strings, no trusts, no shared ownership. I looked at Evan Rook. The lawyer nodded solemnly. It is the cleanest way. Angelina, Harold wants to ensure you have a safe harbor, a place that is solely yours. I signed. My hand trembled. Just a little. I had never owned anything of value in my life. I rented a studio apartment near my office. I drove a used car. The idea of owning a piece of the coastline, a place where the ocean roared day and night, felt terrifying and exhilarating when Harold died 6 months later. The fallout was exactly what he had predicted, but with a twist I should have seen coming. My parents did not scream. They did not throw vases. That would have been undignified. Instead, they launched a campaign of aggressive helpfulness. I remember the dinner at their house a week after the funeral. The dining room was dimly lit. The table set with the good silver. Paige was there, wearing black silk and wiping away dry tears whenever the conversation lulled. We are so proud of you, Angelina, my father, Victor, said, pouring himself a glass of expensive red wine. It is a big responsibility. Owning a property like that, the taxes, the homeowners association fees, the maintenance, it is a lot for a single young woman to handle. I have it covered. Dad, I said, cutting into my steak. My salary at North Bay is sufficient to cover the carrying costs. Of course, my mother chimed in. She reached across the table and patted my hand. Her fingers were cold. But why strain yourself? Victor and I were talking. We should add the condo to our family umbrella insurance policy, and we can have our accountant handle the property taxes directly. We will just deduct it from your inheritance later. It makes sense to consolidate the administration. My internal alarm bells, honed by years of reviewing compliance logs for red flags, began to ring. Consolidation meant control. If they paid the taxes, they created a paper trail of financial contribution. If they insured it, they became parties to the protection of the asset. If they handled the maintenance, they would have the keys. No, I said. The word hung in the air, heavy and absolute. Excuse me? My mother said, her smile tightening at the edges. I said no, I repeated, keeping my voice calm. I appreciate the offer, but I have already set up auto pay for the taxes and the association dues. I have my own insurance policy through a separate broker. I want to keep the finances completely separate. Separate? Victor frowned, swirling his wine. We are family, Angelina. Why do you sound like you are insulating yourself from a hostile merger? Because I like clean lines, I said. And so did Grandpa. The mention of Harold silenced them, but the resentment in their eyes did not vanish. It merely retreated, hiding behind a veil of concern. Over the next year, the pressure shifted. It wasn't about control anymore. It was about guilt. It was always about Paige. Paige is going through a hard time, my mother would say on the phone. She broke up with that boy, the sculptor. She needs a place to clear her head. Why don't you let her stay at the condo for a month? You are barely there during the week. No, I would say. Paige leaves windows open and runs the air conditioning at 60 degrees. Last time she stayed at your beach house, she let a stray cat in, and it scratched up the leather recliner. Material things, my mother would sigh. You are so obsessed with material things. Angelina, just like your grandfather, you don't understand emotional needs. Paige is fragile. She needs the ocean air. She can rent a hotel room, I would reply. You don't need that apartment, my mother snapped once, her mask slipping. You work 70 hours a week. You have no husband. You have no children. It sits there empty while your sister is suffocating in the city. It is selfish. You don't need it. Paige needs it. That was the Langford family motto. Angelina can handle the burden. Paige deserves the reward. But I did need it. I needed it more than they could ever understand. The condo was the only place in the world where I was not defined by what I could do for others. When I unlocked that door on Friday evenings, I wasn't the compliance analyst scanning for errors. I wasn't the disappointing daughter. I wasn't the sister who refused to share. I was just Angelina. I would sit in Harold's old leather armchair, the one my mother wanted to throw out, and I would watch the ships move across the horizon. I would listen to the silence. It was a heavy, protective silence that wrapped around me like a blanket. It was safety. It was the one thing my parents couldn't edit, couldn't critique, and couldn't leverage. Until today, until the brochure, until the lockbox. As the printer in the clerk's office finished its job, spitting out the final page of the fraudulent history, a memory surfaced from the depths of my mind. It was a memory from the very end. 2 days before Harold slipped into the coma from which he would never wake. I was sitting by his bedside in the hospice wing. The room was quiet, save for the rhythmic hiss of the oxygen machine. Harold had opened his eyes. They were cloudy, but the intelligence behind them was still flickering, fighting the darkness. He motioned for me to lean closer. I put my ear near his lips. "They will not stop," he whispered. Every word was a struggle. "They will try to be nice first, then they will try to make you feel guilty, and when that doesn't work, they will try to trick you." "I can handle them, Grandpa," I whispered back. "Listen to me," he wheezed. His hand gripped my wrist, surprisingly strong. "If you ever see them move against the house, if you ever see them touch the paperwork, you go to the safe, the big floor safe in the guest closet." "I know the combination," I said. "Birth year and the date Grandma died." "The blue drawer," he said. "Inside the safe. There is a blue metal drawer. I put something in there for you. I hoped you would never need it. But I know Victor, and I know Celeste. They think rules are for other people." He coughed, a terrible, rattling sound that shook his frail body. When he settled back, his eyes were closing, but he forced out one last sentence. "If they come for the deed, you open the blue drawer. It is the map." I had forgotten about the blue drawer. In the 2 years since his death, I had opened the safe only once to store my own passport and birth certificate. I had seen the small blue metal drawer at the bottom, locked with a separate key that hung on the main hook. But I had never opened it. I assumed it contained old love letters or perhaps some sentimental trinkets he didn't want my mother to pawn. I stood there in the clerk's office, the stack of warm paper in my hands. The sweet trap had failed. The guilt trip about Paige had failed. So now, just as Harold predicted, they had moved to the trick. They had decided that if I wouldn't give them the property, they would simply become me and take it. They thought I was just a daughter. They thought I was just a girl who worked a boring desk job. They forgot that my job was literally to catch people who thought they were smarter than the system. I looked at the documents in my hand, the chain of title, the proof of their crime. My mother's text message from earlier echoed in my head. "Don't make a scene. You are ruining your sister's future." I wasn't going to make a scene. I was going to make a case file. I thanked the clerk, my voice sounding far calmer than I felt, and turned toward the door. I had the what, now I needed the how, and then I needed the blue drawer. The transition from heartbreak to cold fury was complete. I walked out of the recorder's office and into the blinding Florida afternoon. The ghost of my grandfather walking right beside me. We had work to do. I stood at the counter of the county recorder's office, the fluorescent lights humming overhead with a sound that felt like it was drilling directly into my skull. The air conditioning was set to a temperature that was probably meant to preserve paper, but right now, it felt like a meat locker. I watched the clerk, a woman whose name tag read Brenda, as she took the certified copy of the warranty deed I had placed on the cool laminate surface. This was the original document Harold had given me, the one that proved he had transferred the property to me 2 years ago. "I need the full chain of title," I said, my voice steady despite the adrenaline coursing through my veins. "And I want to see the specific instrument that triggered the change in ownership status on the tax roll, the one recorded yesterday." Brenda nodded, her expression bored. To her, this was just another Tuesday, just another dispute about property lines or a misspelled middle name. She adjusted her glasses and began to type. Her keystrokes were rhythmic and heavy, a staccato beat of bureaucracy. Clack, 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 enter. I watched her face. I have spent 10 years working in risk compliance. I know how to read the micro-expressions of someone who has found an anomaly in a data set. I saw the moment it happened. Brenda's fingers stopped moving. She did not hit the print key. She did not look up at me. She leaned closer to her monitor, squinting slightly. Then she scrolled up. Then she scrolled down. The rhythm of the office, the shuffling of papers, the low murmur of conversations in the back, seemed to fade away, leaving only the silence of her hesitation. It was a heavy, pregnant silence, the kind that precedes a car crash. "Is there a problem?" I asked. Brenda turned her head slowly to look at me. The boredom was gone, replaced by a guarded confusion. She looked down at the paper deed I had given her, the valid one, and then back at her screen. "Ma'am," she said, her voice dropping an octave, "you said you are Angelina Edwards?" "I am," I said. I pulled my driver's license from my wallet and slid it across the counter. "That is me." She glanced at the ID, then back at the screen. "I see the warranty deed from Harold Edwards to you. That is clear, recorded 2 years ago, but the system is showing a break in the logic here." She paused, searching for the right words. "Why is your name listed as the grantor on the new deed if you are standing here telling me you don't know about it?" My stomach dropped. Hearing it out loud made it real in a way that the brochure on my door had not. "Let me see the screen," I said. Technically, they are not supposed to show you the internal interface, but Brenda was too confused to enforce protocol. She angled the monitor toward me. There it was, the digital record of my betrayal. Instrument type, quitclaim deed. Grantor, Angelina Edwards. Grantee, Victor Langford and Celeste Langford. Date recorded, yesterday. Time, 4:45 p.m. "A quitclaim," I whispered. "Of course." A warranty deed requires a title search and guarantees that the title is clear. A quitclaim deed contains no warranties. It simply says, "Whatever interest I have, I give to you." It is the quickest, dirtiest way to move property. It is the weapon of choice for divorces, family transfers, and fraudsters. "Print the image," I said. "I need to see the signature." Brenda hit a button. The laser printer behind her whirred to life. She grabbed the sheet of paper and handed it to me. I laid it flat on the counter. The world narrowed down to the bottom right corner of the page. There was a signature line. Beneath it, typed in standard font, was my name, Angelina Edwards, and above it, in black ink, was a signature. It read, "Angelina Edwards." I stared at it. I stopped breathing. It looked like my signature. It had the same slant to the right, the same loop on the G, the same sharp cross on the A. To a casual observer, to a bank teller, even to this clerk, it was a match. But I am not a casual observer. I am the person who owns that hand. "It is a forgery," I said. "It looks very authentic," Brenda said, her tone cautious. She was pulling back now, sensing that this was about to become a legal situation she did not want to be deposed for. "It is too perfect," I said, pointing at the loop of the L. "Look at the pressure. When I sign my name, I lift the pen slightly before the Edwards. There is always a microscopic gap in the ink flow. This is continuous, and the rhythm is wrong. The spacing between the letters is too even." I looked up at her. "This is a tracing, or someone practiced it 1,000 times until they got the shape right. but they missed the speed. This was drawn, not written. I cannot make that determination, Brenda said, retreating to her chair. If it is notarized, we have to record it. We check for formatting, not intent. Who is the supervisor? I asked. I did not shout. I did not slam my hand on the table. I use the voice I use when I find a 7-figure discrepancy in a compliance audit. I need a supervisor, now. Brenda did not argue. She pressed a button on her phone and whispered something. 30 seconds later, a door in the back opened. A woman walked out who looked like she had seen every scam, hustle, and family tragedy in the county for the last 30 years. She was short, with steel gray hair cut in a bob, and a lanyard that identified her as Darla Klein, Senior Records Supervisor. She did not walk. She marched. I am Darla, she said, stopping next to Brenda. I hear we have a dispute regarding instrument number 2026499. It is not a dispute, I said, sliding the forged quitclaim deed toward her. It is a felony. My parents forged my signature and stole my property. This deed was recorded yesterday. I did not sign it. Darla picked up the document. She did not look at the signature first. She looked at the top left corner, then at the notary block. Her eyes narrowed. Brenda, she said. Her voice clipped. Pull up the submission metadata. I already did, Brenda said. It came in through the e-recording portal. Remote online notarization, Darla said, nodding as if she had expected this. She looked at me. Do you know what RON is, Ms. Edwards? Remote online notarization, I said. It allows documents to be notarized via audio-video technology instead of a physical presence. Exactly, Darla said. It is convenient, it is efficient, and if you have a high-resolution copy of someone's driver's license and a person who looks enough like them on a grainy webcam, it is a backdoor. She tapped the notary seal on the paper. This notary is based in Virginia, she said. Out of state. That is common for these online platforms. They log in, they verify identity through a third-party quiz, they watch you sign on camera, and they slap a digital seal on it. Then it gets uploaded to our portal instantly. My parents have a copy of my old driver's license, I realized aloud. I lost it when I moved out 3 years ago. I thought it was just gone. Victor must have kept it. And the knowledge-based authentication questions? Darla asked. These systems ask things like, which of these addresses did you live at in 2015? Or what is the model of your car? I laughed. A harsh, humorless sound. My mother knows my social security number by heart. She knows every address I have ever lived at. She knows the name of my first pet. She could pass an identity quiz about me better than I could. Darla placed the paper back on the counter. She looked at me, and for the first time, I saw a flicker of sympathy in her hardened gaze, but it was not the pitying sympathy of the realtor. It was the tactical sympathy of a general surveying a battlefield. The form is correct, Darla said. The margins are right. The fees were paid. Legally, the recorder's office is a repository, not a police station. We are required by statute to record documents that meet the technical requirements. So you are telling me there is nothing you can do? I asked, feeling the cold seep into my bones. You are telling me that because they filled out the paperwork correctly, they get to keep my house? I did not say that, Darla said. She leaned over the counter, lowering her voice. I said we had to record it. I did not say we have to let them get away with it. She reached under the counter and pulled out a form printed on bright yellow paper. We cannot remove a recorded document, she explained. Once it is in the public record, it is there forever, even if a judge voids it later. The image remains, but we can flag it. She pushed the yellow form toward me. This is a request for administrative hold and property fraud alert, she said. If you sign a sworn statement right now, under penalty of perjury, stating that this instrument is fraudulent, I can place a temporary administrative lock on the parcel. It won't delete the deed, but it will freeze the chain. What does a freeze do? I asked, picking up a pen. It means if anyone tries to record anything else against this property, a mortgage, Another deed. A lien. The system will reject it automatically. Darla said. It puts a giant red stop sign on your file. It also sends an immediate notification to the district attorney's real estate fraud unit. Do it, I said. Read the warning first, Darla commanded. If you are lying, Ms. Edwards, filing a false instrument against a property title is a third-degree felony. I have seen children try to do this to block their parents from selling a house they thought they deserved. It ends in handcuffs. I am not lying, I said. And I am not a child. I signed the affidavit. My hand was steady. I signed it with my real signature, the one with the microscopic lift before the Edwards, the one with the specific rhythm that the forgery lacked. I dated it. I pushed it back to Darla. Darla took the form. She stamped it with a heavy, satisfying thud. Then she turned to her terminal. Brenda, authorize the override, Darla said. Brenda typed in a supervisor code. Darla typed in a command. I watched the screen. The entry for my condo, which had been a standard line of black text against a white background, suddenly changed. A bright red banner appeared across the top of the file. Status: Administrative hold / fraud investigation active, no recording permitted. It was beautiful. It was the most beautiful thing I had ever seen. You have 48 hours to bring me a law enforcement case number, Darla said, turning back to me. This administrative hold is a temporary tourniquet. It stops the bleeding. But if you want to kill the infection, you need a police report and a court order. Otherwise, the hold expires, and the title clears in favor of the last recorded deed. 48 hours, I repeated. And Ms. Edwards? Darla added, her eyes locking onto mine. If they moved this fast to record a quitclaim, they are not done. You don't steal a title just to look at it. You steal it to liquidate it. They are going to try to monetize this asset. They want to sell it, I said. That is why the realtor was there. Maybe, Darla said. But selling takes time. Escrow takes 30 days. Title insurance takes weeks, if they need money now, or if they think you are going to fight them. They won't wait for a sale. She tapped the keyboard one more time. I am looking at the queue, she said. The electronic queue of documents that have been submitted but not yet indexed. She frowned. What is it? I asked. There is another submission pending, she said. It came in 12 minutes ago. It is sitting in the intake folder. Is it a sale contract? I asked. No, Darla said. It is a deed of trust, a mortgage. My blood ran cold. Who is the lender? I asked. It is a hard money lender, Darla said, reading from the screen. Quick cash, high interest, asset-based lending, the kind of place that doesn't ask too many questions about income as long as there is equity in the property. And the borrower? I asked, though I already knew. The borrower is listed as Victor and Celeste Langford, Darla said. No, I corrected her. Look closer. If they just recorded the deed yesterday, the title policy for the loan wouldn't be ready yet. They couldn't borrow against it that fast unless... I stopped. I thought about the text from my mother. You are destroying your sister's future. Unless they aren't the borrowers, I whispered. Unless they are using the clean credit of someone else. Darla clicked on the pending file. You are right, she said. The borrower isn't Victor Langford. The borrower is listed as... She hesitated. It is me, isn't it? I said. They are taking out a loan in my name, using the old identity documents. No, Darla said. It is not you. She turned the screen to me again. Borrower, Paige Langford. I stared at the name, my sister, my baby sister, the one I had protected from bullies in 3rd grade, the one I had sent money to when she couldn't make rent. They transferred the title to themselves to control it, I said, my voice sounding hollow in the quiet office. But they are using Paige's name to anchor the debt. They are putting the mortgage on her credit. If this goes through, Darla said, and they default, your sister goes bankrupt, and you lose the house to foreclosure. Can you stop it? I asked. The hold? Will it stop it? The hold is active now, Darla said. So when this document hits the indexer in about 5 minutes, the system will reject it. It will bounce back to the sender with a recording denied error. Good, I said. But they will know, Darla warned, the moment that rejection hits their email. They will know you are here, they will know the game is up, and desperate people do desperate things. I looked at the red banner on the screen. The first shot had been fired. They had tried to steal my home in the dark. Using the silent, invisible pathways of the internet, I had just turned on the lights and locked the doors. Let them know, I said. I picked up the copy of the forged deed and the sworn affidavit. I want them to know. I want them to panic. You need to go to the sheriff, Darla said. There is a substation in the lobby of the courthouse. Go now. Get a detective. Get that case number. The clock is ticking on my hold. Thank you. Darla, I said. She didn't smile. She just nodded. Go get them. Honey, I hate a thief, but I really hate a thief who shares your last name. I turned from the counter. My phone buzzed in my pocket. I pulled it out. It was a notification from my bank app. Not a transaction, a security alert. Failed login attempt. IP address located in Cape Astor. They were trying to get into my accounts. They weren't just after the house. They were scorching the earth. I tightened my grip on the file folder. I walked out of the recorder's office and headed toward the metal detectors of the courthouse lobby. I wasn't just a daughter anymore. I wasn't just a sister. I was a victim of identity theft, grand larceny, and conspiracy, and I was about to become the worst thing my family had ever encountered, a witness. I turned back to the counter before I had even reached the metal detectors. Darla's voice had not been loud, but it had the sharp, cutting quality of a command that demanded immediate obedience. She was waving me back, her face illuminated by the harsh blue glow of her monitor. The expression on her face was no longer just professional concern. It was alarm. Come back here, she said. Right now. I rushed back to the glass partition. My heart, which had just begun to settle into a cold, hard rhythm of determination, spiked again into a frantic gallop. What is it? I asked. Did the hold fail? The hold is holding, Darla said, her fingers flying across her keyboard. But the system is screaming, that pending submission I told you about? The one that looked like a mortgage for your sister? The system kicked it back automatically because the title transfer to your parents hasn't fully indexed yet. The lender's algorithm saw a mismatch between the borrower, your sister, and the current record owner, you. So it stopped, I said, letting out a breath I didn't know I was holding. That one stopped, Darla said grimly. But they are not stopping. Another submission just hit the queue, literally 30 seconds ago. They are pivoting. They realized the loan in Paige's name wouldn't clear until the deed was finalized. And they don't want to wait. She turned the screen toward me. They are trying to bypass the title transfer entirely, she said. They are trying to strip the equity out directly, right now, under your name. I looked at the screen. It was a terrifying wall of text, but the key fields stood out like neon warning signs. Instrument. HELOC. Home equity. Line of credit. Principal amount. $350,000. Lender. Quick Draw Capital. LLC. Borrower. Angelina Edwards. The room seemed to tilt. They weren't just stealing the house anymore. They were trying to saddle me with over $250,000 in debt. They were impersonating me. This wasn't just property fraud. This was full-blown identity theft on a federal level. They are using my credentials, I whispered. How are they doing this? A HELOC requires a credit check. It requires income verification. Not with these hard money lenders, Darla said, her voice disgusted. Quick Draw Capital is a predatory outfit. They focus on asset value. If the algorithm sees enough equity in the property and a credit score that meets the threshold, they push it through. They rely on automated underwriting. And since you have excellent credit, they are leveraging my own good standing against me, I finished. They are going to drain $350,000 out of my home, deposit it into some account they control, and leave me with the debt and a foreclosed condo. We need to kill this, Darla said. The fraud alert is flagging it, but because the borrower name matches the current record owner name, the system is hesitating. It is looking for a manual override or a confirmation. Reject it, I said. Mark it as fraudulent. I am doing that right now, Darla said. She hit a series of keys with aggressive force. I am attaching the affidavit you just signed to this submission reference number. I am placing a hard stop on the parcel ID for any financing activity. She paused. Watching a progress bar on the screen, it spun for a second, then turned green. Submission rejected. Return to filer. Caught it, Darla said. By the skin of our teeth, if you had walked out that door 2 minutes ago, this might have slipped into the processing batch. I gripped the edge of the counter. My hands were shaking, not from fear, but from a rage so pure it felt like clarity. I want the metadata, I said. I want to know exactly who is doing this. Someone is sitting at a computer right now, pretending to be me. I can give you the transmission log, Darla said. It is public record once it hits our portal. She printed a single sheet of paper. It was dense with technical data, IP addresses, routing numbers, timestamps, and contact information entered by the filer. I snatched the paper from the printer tray. My eyes scanned past the routing numbers and the encrypted session IDs. I looked for the contact phone number listed for the borrower. It was not my number. It was not my parents' number. It was a number I recognized instantly. Area code 305-555-0921. Gavin, I said out loud. You know this number? Darla asked. Gavin Sharp, I said. He is a mortgage broker. He plays golf with my father every Sunday. He has been coming to our 4th of July barbecues since I was 10 years old. The betrayal deepened, sinking its roots into the wider network of my life. Gavin Sharp wasn't just a family friend. He was the man who had helped me refinance my student loans 5 years ago. He had my social security number. He had my employment history. He had copies of my signature on file. My parents hadn't just acted alone. They had recruited a professional. They had turned my life into a conspiracy. This is organized, Darla said quietly. This isn't just a domestic dispute anymore. This is wire fraud involving a licensed broker. He is the intermediary, I said, my mind racing. He is the one pushing the paperwork through the portal so my parents can keep their hands clean. He thinks he is safe because he is just the processor. I looked further down the log. There was an IP address listed for the origin of the upload. IP. Location. Cape Astor, Florida. ISP. Coastal FiberNet. That is a residential IP, I noted. Gavin's office is downtown. This was sent from a home. I need to secure the physical asset, I said, suddenly remembering the lockbox on my door. If they are this desperate for cash, $350,000 fast. They aren't just going to stop at paperwork. They have keys. They have that realtor pushing for a sale. I pulled out my phone. I didn't call the police yet. I called the one place that could physically lock them out in under 5 minutes. The Mariners Key Homeowners Association office. The phone rang 3 times before a breathless receptionist picked up. Mariners Key Management. This is Tiffany. How can I direct your call? Put me through to Marcus Thorne, I said. This is Angelina Edwards, owner of Unit 402. It is an emergency. Mr. Thorne is in a meeting right now, Tiffany chirped. Can I take a message? No, I said. You will go into that meeting and hand him the phone. Tell him there is an active fraud investigation involving the sheriff's department regarding my unit. And if he doesn't take this call, the HOA will be named as an accessory in the lawsuit. There was a stunned silence on the other end. 1 moment, please. Classic compliance strategy. Escalate the risk until the gatekeeper becomes afraid. 10 seconds later, Marcus Thorne's booming, polished voice came on the line. Angelina, what on earth is going on? I heard you were shouting at Tiffany. Marcus, I said, cutting him off. Listen to me very carefully. Someone installed a lockbox on my unit door this morning without my permission. Someone listed my unit for sale without my signature, and as of 5 minutes ago, someone tried to take out a fraudulent mortgage against the building deed. Whoa. Hold on, Marcus said, his tone shifting from annoyed to defensive. Your mother called me yesterday. She said they were handling some estate planning for you. She said you were struggling. My mother is lying, I said. I am currently standing in the county recorder's office with the supervisor of records. We have placed a fraud alert on the title. I have a sworn affidavit here. Angelina, this sounds like a family matter, Marcus said, trying to backpedal. We don't like to get involved in domestic. This is not a domestic matter, Marcus, I snapped. This is a felony in progress. If you allow anyone access to my unit using that unauthorized lockbox, or if security lets my parents or any realtor through that gate, the HOA is liable. I will sue the association for negligence. I will sue you personally for facilitating a break-in. I let the threat hang there. I knew Marcus. He cared about two things: the property values and his liability insurance premiums. What do you want me to do? He asked. His voice was no longer booming. It was small and compliant. I want the gate code for my unit changed immediately, I said. Delete the old code my mother has. Issue a new one. Text it to me only. I want security to go up to the 4th floor and remove that lockbox with bolt cutters if necessary. And I want a do not admit order placed on Victor and Celeste Langford. I can't ban owners' parents without a board vote, he protested weakly. They are not owners, I said. And if they enter that property today, they are trespassers. Do you want the police sirens at Mariner's Key? Marcus, do you want the flashing lights in the driveway while the potential buyers are touring the penthouse? No, he said quickly. No sirens. Okay, I am doing it now. I am logging into the access system. I heard the clicking of a keyboard on his end. Code is changed, he said. I am sending the new one to your mobile on file. I will radio security to pull the lockbox. We will hold it in the office for you. Thank you, I said. If anyone asks, tell them the unit is under a legal hold. I hung up. I felt a grim satisfaction. I had secured the perimeter. They could try to sell it. But they couldn't show it. They could try to borrow against it. But the county computer would block them. I was closing the doors, one by one. You are good at that, Darla observed. She was still watching the metadata log. I analyze risk for a living, I said. I know how to stop a breach. Well, get ready for the breach to get personal, Darla said. I just ran the user ID associated with the account that uploaded the documents, the one who actually logged into the portal. It was Gavin, right? I asked. The broker? Gavin is the contact, Darla said. But the account holder, the person who set up the profile on the e-recording site, they used a different name. Probably thought it wouldn't be visible on the public log. She pointed to a line of text at the very bottom of the metadata sheet, labeled Authorized Filer/User Account. I leaned in. I expected to see Gavin Sharp. I expected to see my father. Victor. I saw neither. Authorized Filer. Page_Langford_creative. The air left my lungs. Paige. My sister wasn't just the passive beneficiary. She wasn't just the reason they needed the money. She wasn't the innocent flower being protected by my parents. She was the typist. She was the one sitting at the keyboard. She was the one who had likely photoshopped the signature. She was the art school dropout who knew how to manipulate digital images. My parents didn't know how to convert a PDF or use an encrypted portal. They barely knew how to attach a file to an email, but Paige lived online. She is doing the grunt work, I said, my voice barely a whisper. My parents are the architects. Gavin is the fixer, but Paige is the executioner. I remembered the text message she had sent me a week ago. Hey, Angie, do you have a high-res scan of your driver's license? I need it for that family insurance thing Dad talked about. I hadn't sent it, but the attempt was there. She had been hunting for me. She is the weak link, Darla said. The person pressing the buttons is always the one who leaves the most fingerprints. She is authorized on the account, I said, staring at her name. That means she is legally liable for every document uploaded. It means, Darla said, handing me the printout, that you have leverage. Your parents might be willing to fight you in civil court, but are they willing to watch their golden child go to prison for wire fraud? I took the paper. It felt heavy, weighted down by the destruction of the last shred of loyalty I had for my family. I am going to the sheriff, I said, and I am giving them this name. Go, Darla said. And Angelina? Don't answer your phone. When the rejection email hits Paige's inbox in about 30 seconds, your phone is going to blow up. As if on cue, my phone vibrated in my hand. Incoming call. Dad. I silenced it. Then I blocked the number. I walked toward the glass doors of the office, stepping out of the bureaucratic sanctuary and into the line of fire. I had the deed. I had the fraud alert. I had the metadata. And now, I had the name of the traitor. My grandfather's voice echoed in my head. If they take by words, you win by paper. I had the paper. Now I was going to use it to burn their house of cards to the ground. I stood in the marble hallway of the county courthouse, the cool air doing little to lower the temperature of my blood. My phone was still vibrating in my hand, a relentless, buzzing insect demanding attention. It was my father again. Then my mother. Then the house line. They were realizing that the walls were closing in, and their instinct was to make noise until I surrendered. I did not answer. Surrender was not on the agenda. I looked at the printout Darla had given me. Authorized filer, Paige_Langford_creative. My sister. The emotional part of my brain wanted to scream. It wanted to drive to her apartment, shake her by the shoulders, and ask her how she could sell me out for a share of a $350,000 payout. But the analyst part of my brain, the part that kept me employed and currently kept me sane, pumped the brakes. If Paige was the mastermind, she wouldn't have used a username that practically screamed her identity. Paige was many things: artistic, flighty, entitled. But she was not a criminal genius. She was a follower, and followers are easily manipulated. If I accused her now, if I sent a text screaming, "You stole my house," she would panic. She would call Mom. Mom would coach her. They would circle the wagons, delete the evidence, and come up with a unified story about how I had verbally agreed to the sale and was now suffering from a mental breakdown. I needed to flank them. I needed to get her record on file before she had time to rehearse the lie. I opened a new message thread. I typed with surgical precision. No emotion, no accusations, just facts. I am at the county recorder's office. I have a copy of a forged quitclaim deed transferring my condo to Mom and Dad. I also see a pending loan application in your name using my property as collateral. The fraud alert is active. Do not sign anything else. You are currently exposed to felony charges. I hit send. I stared at the screen. The 3 dots appeared almost instantly. She had the phone in her hand. Of course she did. She was probably waiting for the verification code for the loan application. The dots danced, stopped, danced again. She was typing, deleting, retyping, panic mode. Then the message came through. What? I didn't sell anything? Dad said those were tax documents. He said he needed me to file an amendment to the trust so you wouldn't get hit with a capital gains penalty next year. He said I was helping you. I let out a breath I didn't realize I'd been holding. He said I was helping you. There it was, the narrative. Victor Langford didn't just steal. He framed his theft as benevolence. He had convinced Paige that she was the hero of the story, saving her big sister from the scary taxman. All while she was literally typing the commands to strip me of my equity. I didn't reply immediately. I took a screenshot of her message. Then I took another. I captured the timestamps. This was admission and exoneration in one breath. She admitted to the act, signing/filing, but denied the intent, fraud. Pointing the finger directly at our father, I sent one final reply. If you signed a deed, it wasn't a tax document. You have been used to commit identity theft. Stop talking to them. I am going to the sheriff. I didn't wait for her response. I switched the phone to Do Not Disturb. I turned the corner and walked toward the glass doors marked Sheriff's Department, Civil Division, Economic Crimes, Substation. The substation smelled different from the recorder's office. The recorder's office smelled like paper and dust. This place smelled like floor wax and cold coffee. It was quiet, the kind of heavy quiet that hangs over places where bad news is delivered. There was a front desk with thick bulletproof glass. Behind it sat a deputy in a beige uniform, staring at a computer screen. I approached the window. I laid my documents out in a neat row. The forged deed, the affidavit Darla had stamped, the metadata log with Paige's user ID, the text message screenshot I had just printed from the public terminal in the lobby on my way in. "Can I help you?" the deputy asked, not looking up. "I need to file a report for active real estate fraud and identity theft," I said. "The suspects are currently attempting to encumber the property with a fraudulent mortgage. I have the chain of title and the IP logs." The deputy looked up. He was younger than I expected, maybe in his late 20s, with a nameplate that read, Deputy Noah Briggs. He had the tired eyes of someone who spent all day listening to neighbors complain about property lines and barking dogs. "Real estate fraud is usually a civil matter, ma'am," he said, reciting the standard line. "You might want to contact an attorney." "This is not a civil dispute," I said, keeping my voice level. "This is a forgery utilizing a remote online notarization platform with a stolen identity. A fraudulent instrument was recorded yesterday. A second instrument was attempted 20 minutes ago. The county recorder has already placed an administrative hold on the parcel." I slid the yellow affidavit against the glass. "That is the recorder's stamp," I said. "Supervisor Darla Klein sent me." Briggs looked at the stamp. He looked at the metadata log. The boredom vanished from his face, replaced by a flicker of interest. He stood up, unlocked the side door, and buzzed me in. "Come on back," he said. He led me to a small, gray desk in the corner. He didn't offer me coffee. He pulled out a fresh notepad. "Okay," Briggs said, sitting down. "Start from the beginning, and give me the names." I sat straight. I did not cry. I did not tell him about my childhood, or how much I loved the ocean, or how my mother always criticized my hair. I gave him the data. "My name is Angelina Edwards. I am the sole owner of the condo at Mariner's Key, Unit 402. Yesterday at 4:45 p.m., a quitclaim deed was recorded transferring ownership to Victor and Celeste Langford. I did not sign this deed. I was at work at North Bay Risk Labs at that time. Today, at 2 p.m., a realtor attempted to show the property. At 2:30 p.m., a hard money loan application was submitted by a user named Paige Langford, using my credentials as the borrower." Briggs wrote quickly, his pen scratching across the paper. "Suspects?" he asked. "Victor and Celeste Langford are my parents," I said. "Paige Langford is my sister." Briggs paused. He looked up at me. "Your whole family?" "Yes," I said. "And a mortgage broker named Gavin Sharp, whose phone number appears on the transmission log." Briggs let out a low whistle. "Okay. That is a heavy start. You said this was a remote notarization?" "Yes," I said. "The deed shows a Virginia notary seal. It was e-recorded." "That is good for us," Briggs said, leaning back. "Bad for them. Ron, remote online notarization, leave a massive digital footprint. To get that seal, the session has to be recorded, audio and video. The law requires the platform to store that video for 10 years. "I know," I said. "That is why I am here. I need that video preserved before they realize the loan was rejected and try to wipe the account." Briggs nodded. He turned to his computer. "I am going to pull up the fraud alert from the recorder's system. I need to see what Darla flagged." He typed in the parcel number. He stared at the screen for a moment, reading the notes Darla had entered. "Okay," he said. "I see the hold. I see the rejection of the deed of trust. The system flagged a mismatch on the ID verification." "What mismatch?" I asked. "The notary platform usually requires you to upload a photo of your driver's license, Front and back, Briggs explained. Then it runs it against a national database to check for holograms and validity. If the license is expired or reported lost, it flags it. He clicked on a file attachment. Darla attached the thumbnail of the ID used for the session, he said. Do you recognize this? He turned the monitor toward me. It was a driver's license. It was my driver's license, but it wasn't the one currently in my wallet. The photo showed me with bangs, a hairstyle I hadn't had in 5 years, and the issue date was 6 years ago. That is my old license, I said, feeling a cold chill crawl up my spine. I lost this when I moved out of my parents' house 3 years ago. I thought it fell behind a dresser or got thrown out with the packing boxes. I reported it lost and got a replacement. It wasn't lost, Briggs said grimly. Someone kept it. My father, I said. The realization hit me with the force of a physical blow. He has a safe in his office. He used to tell us he kept copies of our important documents for safety, birth certificates, social security cards, old passports. He said it was in case of a fire or a hurricane, or in case he needed to become you, Briggs noted. He kept it, I whispered. He kept an invalid ID for 3 years, waiting for a moment to use it. Here is the thing, Briggs said, pointing at the screen. This license is expired. See the date? It expired last year. A notary shouldn't have accepted this. So how did it go through? I asked. Credible witness, Briggs said. If an ID is expired or missing, a signer can use a credible witness, someone who joins the video call, swears under oath that they know the signer, and verifies their identity. It is a loophole. Who was the witness? I asked. Briggs scrolled down. It doesn't say on the deed itself. That would be in the notary journal. Or on the video. He looked at me. If we get that video, Ms. Edwards, we see everything. We see who sat in front of the camera. We see who held up the ID. We hear the voice of the person pretending to be you. Can you get it? I asked. I can subpoena it, Briggs said. But that takes days. A judge has to sign off. By then, if they are smart, they might claim a server error and the file corrupts. We don't have days, I said. They are desperate. The text from my sister proves they are trying to fix a tax issue. They are spinning a narrative right now. Briggs looked at the text message screenshot again. Your sister says she thought it was tax papers, he mused. But she is the one logging into the portal. That makes her an accessory. At best. At worst, she is the fall guy. She is the fall guy, I said firmly. My parents never get their hands dirty. They let Paige take the risks because they know I won't hurt her. They are banking on my sentimentality. Are they right? Briggs asked. Are you going to drop this if it means arresting your sister? I looked at him. I thought about the 3 knocks on my door. I thought about the for sale brochure. I thought about the $350,000 debt they tried to strap to my back. No, I said. I am not dropping it. Briggs nodded. He respected that answer. He opened a drawer and pulled out a card with a case number on it. This is your incident number, he said. I am opening a file for identity theft, forgery, and attempted grand theft, but to stop them right now, to freeze them in their tracks, we need to let the money people know the game is rigged. The title company, I said. Harborline Title and Escrow. That was the name on the rejected loan application. Exactly, Briggs said. The lender is just a wallet. The title company is the gatekeeper. They are the ones holding the escrow account. If they think the deal is real, they might still be trying to find a way to fund it. Maybe they are looking for a workaround for the title issue. He reached for his desk phone. Do you have the contact number for the escrow officer? He asked. I saw it on the metadata log, I said, pointing to the paper. Renee Holt, compliance manager. Briggs punched in the number. He put it on speaker. I am going to identify myself, he told me. You stay quiet unless I ask you a question. We want to hear what they think is happening before we tell them what is actually happening. The phone rang. Once, twice. Harborline Title. This is Renee. A crisp, professional voice answered. Ms. Holt, Briggs said, his voice dropping into a deep, authoritative register. This is Deputy Noah Briggs with the County Sheriff's Department, Economic Crimes Division. I am calling regarding an active file on your desk. Escrow number HL4922. There was a pause on the other end. A long, heavy pause. The sound of typing stopped. The Langford file? Renee asked. Her voice had lost its customer service shine. It sounded wary. That is the one, Briggs said. I am currently looking at a rejected recording submission for that file, and I am sitting with the property owner, Ms. Angelina Edwards, who says she has never spoken to you. That is impossible, Renee said, her voice sharpening. We have a remote signing scheduled for 5 o'clock today to correct the deed issue. Ms. Edwards confirmed it by email 20 minutes ago. I felt my jaw tighten. They were impersonating me in real time, even after the rejection. They were doubling down. Confirmed by email, Briggs repeated, glancing at me. From what email address? The one on file, Renee said. Angelina Edwards, regmail.com. I shook my head at Briggs. That wasn't my email. It was a fake account. Ms. Holt, Briggs said, I need you to stop everything you are doing. Do not disperse funds. Do not accept signatures. That email is compromised. The person emailing you is not the owner. Is this a joke? Renee asked, sounding more annoyed than scared. We have a video verification on file from the quitclaim yesterday. We know, Briggs said. We believe that video is evidence of a felony, and if you proceed with this transaction, Harborline will be named as a co-conspirator in a wire fraud investigation. The silence on the other end was absolute this time. I am listening, Renee said finally. Her voice was ice cold. Good, Briggs said, because the woman sitting in front of me has a badge from her workplace, a valid passport, and a heartbeat, and she says the woman in your video is a ghost. Briggs looked at me. He signaled for me to speak. Ms. Holt, I said, leaning toward the speakerphone. This is the real Angelina Edwards. Verify my voice. Ask me a security question that isn't on a driver's license. Ask me something only the real owner would know. Okay, Renee said. She was typing furiously now. Who is the beneficiary listed on the hazard insurance policy for the condo unit? There isn't one, I said instantly. I carry a Walls-in policy with State Farm, but the structure is covered by the HOA master policy held by Coastal Underwriters. My policy number ends in 449. Renee stopped typing. Okay, she said. Her voice was shaking slightly. Okay, that is correct. The person in the email, they told me the policy was with Allstate. That is my parents' insurer, I said. Deputy, Renee said, I am locking the file. I am placing a preservation hold on the server. Nobody touches this escrow starting now. We need that video. Ms. Holt, Briggs said. The RON session from yesterday, and the audit trail. I can't send it without a subpoena, Renee said, her corporate training kicking back in. I will have a subpoena on your desk by morning, Briggs said. But right now, I need to know one thing. Who is the notary listed on that session? Who is the one who stamped that fake deed? Let me check the log, Renee said. We heard the click of a mouse. It is a Virginia notary, she said. Name is Waite. That is odd. What is odd? I asked. The notary isn't a third-party service, Renee said slowly. The notary is listed as an in-house employee of a company called Apex Financial Services. I looked at Briggs. He looked at me. Apex Financial, I said. That is my father's wealth management firm. The puzzle pieces slammed together. They didn't just use a fake ID. They used a notary who worked for my father. It was an inside job from top to bottom. He notarized it himself, I whispered. Or he made one of his employees do it. Deputy, Renee said, her voice urgent. If the notary is compromised, then every document in this chain is void. I am flagging this as a total breach. Do it, Briggs said. And Ms. Holt? If anyone calls you from the Langford family, tell them the system is down. Do not tell them we are watching. Understood, Renee said. The line went dead. Briggs hung up the phone. He looked at me. The skepticism was completely gone. In its place was the grim determination of a hunter who had just spotted the prey. Your father used his own employee to notarize a forged deed transferring your property to himself. Briggs summarized. That is not just fraud. Ms. Edwards, that is racketeering. He stood up and grabbed his radio. I am going to the recorder's office to get physical copies of those alerts, he said. You sit tight. When I come back, we are going to draft an affidavit that will make your parents wish they had never heard the word condo. I sat back in the hard plastic chair. I looked at the text message from Paige on my phone. Dad said I was helping you. No, Paige, I whispered to the empty room. You weren't helping me, but you are going to help me now. I unlocked my phone and opened the banking app. I had one more stop to make after this. If they were playing with financial fire, I needed to make sure my own firewall was impenetrable, but for the first time in hours, the crushing weight in my chest had lightened. I wasn't the victim anymore. I was the plaintiff, and in the American legal system, the plaintiff gets to speak first. The silence in the sheriff's substation after Deputy Briggs hung up the phone was heavy, but it was a different kind of heavy than before. It wasn't the weight of confusion or victimhood anymore. It was the dense, kinetic gravity of a counterstrike beginning to take shape. She is locking it down, Briggs said, placing the receiver back in its cradle. But a phone call is just air. We need to concrete this before your father tries to bully his way through a lower-level clerk. I am already on it, I said. I had my laptop open on the small gray desk. I never went anywhere without it. A habit from years of working in a field where a crisis could drop at any hour. I was tethered to my mobile hotspot, the connection bars strong and steady. I need the exact spelling of the escrow officer's name and the file reference number she read out, I said, my fingers hovering over the keyboard. Renee Holt, Briggs recited, reading from his notes. File number HL4922, I typed fast. My subject line was in all caps. Urgent. Notice of fraud / dispute of title / preservation demand. Escrow file HL4922. I didn't write it like a daughter. I wrote it like a compliance officer issuing a cease and desist to a rogue trader. Dear Ms. Holt, pursuant to our telephonic conversation with Deputy Noah Briggs of the County Sheriff's Department, case number 2026 Alpha 9. Please be advised that the underlying quitclaim deed recorded yesterday, instrument number 2026499, is a forgery. I hit the attach button. I uploaded the sworn affidavit Darla had stamped. I uploaded the photo of the genuine deed Harold had given me. I uploaded the screenshot of the text message from Paige admitting to the deception. I am demanding the preservation of the remote online notarization video, I said aloud as I typed the words, and the full audit trail, the IP logs, the session metadata, the credential analysis report. Make sure you specifically mention the signing service, Briggs advised. Leaning over my shoulder, if they used a third-party platform, Harborline has an admin login. They can pull the back-end logs that the user can't see. That is where we will find the device ID. And the identity of the witness, I added. If my father used an employee from his firm to witness a fake signature, that employee left a digital fingerprint too. I added the demand. Preserve all communication logs, including emails and chat transcripts, between Harborline Title and any party purporting to be Angelina Edwards or her agents. I read it over once. It was cold. It was clinical. It was perfect. I hit send. The swoosh sound of the email departing felt like a weapon firing. It is done, I said. Renee has the legal notice. If she moves a single penny now, she loses her license and goes to jail for aiding and abetting. Briggs sat back in his chair, rubbing his chin. The adrenaline of the call was fading, replaced by the grim pragmatism of his job. You stopped Harborline, he said. And Darla stopped the recording office. That blocks the front door and the back door. So we are safe? I asked, though I knew the answer before he gave it. For today, Briggs said. Maybe for tomorrow. But these people, your parents, they aren't just desperate junkies breaking into a car. They have resources. They have a mortgage broker. They have a notary. This is a machine. He looked me in the eye. If they can't sell it through Harbor Line, they will try to go around. They will find a title company in another county, or a private lender who doesn't check the county recorder's database every hour. They might try to file a correction deed claiming the first one had a typo, just to muddy the waters and lift the hold. A correction deed? I asked. It is a trick, Briggs explained. They file a document saying, "Oops, we spelled the name wrong," or "the legal description was off," sometimes. If a clerk isn't paying attention, that new document gets indexed and it looks like the title is active again. It creates a window, a gap of a few hours where they can push a transaction through. So I need a bigger lock, I said. You need a judge, Briggs said. The sheriff's department investigates crimes. We build the case for the prosecutor, but we can't issue orders regarding property rights. Darla's administrative hold is a temporary bandage. It expires in 48 hours if you don't bring a court order. He slid a piece of paper across the desk. You need a civil attorney, he said. Not a family lawyer. You need a shark who specializes in real estate litigation. You need to file a quiet title action immediately, and you need to request an emergency temporary restraining order, a TRO. A TRO against my parents? I asked. Against everyone, Briggs said. Against your parents, your sister, the broker, the title company, the world. A TRO tells the planet that this property is under litigation and nobody can touch it. Not to sell, not to lease, not to stage, not to paint the walls, without a judge's permission. If they violate a TRO, it isn't just paperwork anymore. It is contempt of court. They go straight to a cell. I took the paper, quiet title, TRO. The vocabulary of my life was changing rapidly. I will find one, I said. I have my grandfather's contacts. He knew people. Good, Briggs said, because while we are doing this, your parents are going to realize the money tap is turned off. And when that happens, they are going to panic. They might try to physically occupy the condo. They might try to change the locks again. The HOA has secured the unit, I said. I handled that. Good, Briggs repeated. He seemed impressed. You are thinking 3 moves ahead. I have to, I said. I grew up in that house. I know how they operate. They don't stop until they hit a wall they can't charm or bribe their way through. My computer pinged. A new email notification. It was from Renee Holt at Harbor Line Title. Subject: Urgent dispute. File HL 4922. Confirmation of freeze. She replied, I said. Fast. I opened the email. The tone had shifted completely from the defensive posture on the phone. It was now fully cooperative, bordering on apologetic. Dear Miss Edwards, receipt of your dispute package is acknowledged. We have placed an immediate administrative lock on this escrow file. No funds will be disbursed. No further documents will be recorded, per your request, and under the direction of the Sheriff's Department, we have preserved the full digital file. I have personally downloaded the RON, Remote Online Notarization, video session, and the audit trail from the platform provider to our secure local server to prevent any remote deletion by the initiating party. However, in the interest of full disclosure and to aid your investigation, I am attaching the settlement statement that was prepared for the signing scheduled for 5 o'clock today. I believe you should see who was on the other side of this transaction. I clicked the attachment. It was a HUD-1 settlement statement, a standard form listing the buyer, the seller, and where all the money goes. I scrolled past the fees. I scrolled past the commission for the realtor. I looked for the line labeled buyer. I expected to see the names of the couple I had seen in the hallway, the man with the gold watch and his wife, or perhaps a generic property flipper. I did not see a person's name. Buyer, Obsidian Coast Holdings, LLC. It is an LLC, I said. Obsidian Coast Holdings. Shell company, Briggs said, leaning in. Keeps the real owner's name off the public deed, common for high-end real estate. but also common for laundering. Wait, I said. Look at the address for the LLC. I highlighted the line. The address wasn't in Florida. It was a P.O. box in Delaware. Delaware is the capital of anonymous corporations. You can form a company there and never list a human name on the public filings. But look at the signature block, I said, scrolling to the last page of the contract where the buyer had already pre-signed their portion. In a corporate transaction, a human being still has to sign on behalf of the company. Usually, it is a manager or a managing member. The signature was a scrawl, illegible, but the printed name beneath it was clear. By Julian V. Thorne, managing member. Thorne, I whispered. The name triggered a synapse firing in the back of my brain. Why do I know that name? Thorne, Briggs repeated. You mentioned a Marcus Thorne earlier, the HOA manager. Marcus Thorne, I said. Julian Thorne. Could be a coincidence. Thorne isn't an uncommon name. In a town this size, Briggs said skeptically. In a deal this dirty? I don't believe in coincidences. I quickly opened a new tab on my browser. I typed Julian Thorne Cape Astor. Nothing. I typed Obsidian Coast Holdings, LLC, Florida Division of Corporations. The search result popped up. Foreign Limited Liability Company. Registered agent address. My breath caught in my throat. The registered agent address wasn't a law firm. It wasn't a corporate service center. It was a suite number in a medical plaza on the south side of town. Suite 304. I know that address, I said. My mother goes there. It is the aesthetics clinic, where she gets her Botox and fillers. The buyer is a shell company registered to a Botox clinic? Briggs asked. Confused. No, I said, my mind racing, connecting the invisible threads. Not the clinic. The clinic is Suite 302. Suite 304 is the office next door. I closed my eyes, visualizing the building directory I had walked past a dozen times while waiting for my mother. Suite 304, Sterling Wealth Management. It is not the HOA guy, I said. It is the financial advisor, my parents' personal financial advisor, the one who manages their retirement accounts. The one who told them to put everything in a trust 5 years ago. What is his name? Briggs asked. I don't remember his first name, I said. I just remember he was slick. He wore Italian suits and talked about tax efficiency constantly. But if he is the managing member of the LLC buying my condo, then he isn't just managing their money, Briggs said darkly. He is cannibalizing it, or he is helping them hide it. Renee said the signer on their side wasn't my parents, I said, reading the email again. She meant the buyer's side, this Julian person. I looked at the settlement statement again. Purchase price, $850,000. $850, I said. The realtor listed it for $1.2 million. The brochure said $1.2. Why are they selling it for $850? That is $350,000 below market value, Briggs calculated. That is a fire sale, or it is a sweetheart deal, I said. They sell it cheap to this LLC. The LLC flips it later for the real price, and the difference, the $350,000 profit, disappears into a Delaware account where nobody can track it. And your parents get quick cash now, Briggs said. Enough to pay off whatever debt they are drowning in, or to fund your sister's lifestyle, and the advisor takes a massive cut on the back end. It is a liquidation, I said. They are stripping the asset. They don't care about the value. They just want the liquidity. And this advisor, this Julian Thorne, he is the vacuum cleaner. This just went from family fraud to complex white-collar crime, Briggs said. We need to identify Julian Thorne definitively, and we need to know if he's related to your HOA manager. I am going to find out, I said. But first, I need to make sure they can't start a fire while we are looking for the matches. I looked at the preservation confirmed line in Renee's email. We have the video, I said. Renee has it. That video is the smoking gun. It will show us who impersonated me, but this contract, this shows us why. Ms. Edwards, Briggs said. Standing up, I am going to take this new info to my sergeant. This is crossing jurisdictional lines with the Delaware LLC, but for you, you need to go see that lawyer, right now. You need that TRO before business hours open tomorrow. I am going, I said. I packed my laptop. I felt a strange vibration in my pocket. My phone again. But it wasn't a call. It was a notification from my security app, the one connected to the condo. Alert. Front door smart lock. Battery cover removed. They are there, I said, staring at the screen. Right now, someone is tampering with the lock. The security guard? Briggs asked. No, I said. The HOA manager said he would have security pull the lockbox. This says battery cover removed. That is how you reset the digital keypad if you don't have the code. You physically hack it. I showed Briggs the screen. Go, he said. But do not engage. Call 911 if you see them. Let patrol handle it. Do not confront your father. I am not going to the condo, I said, slinging my bag over my shoulder. If they want to break in, let them trigger the alarm. I have a more important stop to make. The lawyer? Briggs asked. No, I said. My grandfather left me a map. I think it is time I learned how to read it. I walked out of the substation. The sun was beginning to dip lower, casting long, distorted shadows across the parking lot. The game had changed. It wasn't just about my parents anymore. It was about a network that included a crooked notary, a predatory lender, and a mysterious financial advisor hiding behind a Delaware shell company. My parents were just the pawns. I was about to go hunting for the king. I drove back to Mariner's Key with one eye on the road and one eye on the rearview mirror. Deputy Briggs had told me to stay away, to let the patrol units handle the physical security. But Deputy Briggs did not know about the blue drawer. He did not know that the only thing more dangerous than a thief in my house was a thief finding the instructions on how to stop them. The notification on my phone about the battery cover being removed had stopped flashing 20 minutes ago. When I pulled up to the guardhouse, the security officer, a heavy-set man named Ortiz, whom I had known for 5 years, waved me down. He looked rattled. "Ms. Edwards," he said, leaning out of the booth. "We had an incident. Your father, he was trying to reset the keypad on your door. Said the batteries were dead. I told him the unit was under a lockout order from management." "Did he leave?" I asked. "He made a scene," Ortiz said, wiping sweat from his forehead. "Threatened to sue the association. But when I picked up the radio to call the sheriff, he and your mother got into that black Mercedes and peeled out. They are gone." "Thank you, Ortiz," I said. "Don't let them back in. Not for anything." I parked my car in the garage, bypassing the elevator and taking the stairs. My legs burned with every step, a physical manifestation of the stress burning through my nervous system. When I reached the 4th floor, I approached my door cautiously. The smart lock looked intact, but the plastic casing on the battery pack was slightly askew. They had tried to hard reset it. They had tried to break into their own daughter's home like common burglars because the digital walls were closing in on them. I keyed in the code. The bolt slid back with a heavy, reassuring thud. I stepped inside. The condo was cool and silent. The smell of lemon polish and sea salt hung in the air. A scent that usually brought me peace but now felt like the stillness of a crime scene. I didn't turn on the lights. The afternoon sun was slicing through the hurricane-proof glass, casting long, sharp shadows across the floor. I went straight to the master bedroom closet. I pushed aside the hanging rows of my winter coats, vestiges of a life I barely lived, and knelt on the floor. I pulled up the corner of the carpet. Beneath it was the floor safe Harold had installed 10 years ago. It was an old model, heavy steel, mechanical dial, no digital keypad to hack, no Wi-Fi connection to exploit. I spun the dial, right to 19, left to 42, right to 11. The handle turned. The heavy door swung open. Inside were my passport, my birth certificate, and a stack of savings bonds. I ignored them. I reached into the back, feeling for the small, cold metal tab of the internal compartment. The blue drawer. Harold had given me the key to this drawer on the same day he signed the deed. "Don't lose this," he had said. And don't use it unless the sky is falling. The sky wasn't just falling, it was being sold for parts. I inserted the small silver key. It turned with a smooth click. I slid the drawer open. There was no money inside, no gold coins, no jewelry, just a thick, cream-colored envelope sealed with red wax and a spiral-bound notebook. I picked up the envelope. On the front, in Harold's shaky, cursive script, were the words, "For Angelina." In the event of a breach, I sat back on the floor, my back against the wall of clothes. My hands were trembling as I broke the seal. I unfolded the letter. The paper was heavy. Expensive bond. The date at the top was 3 years ago, 2 weeks before he went into the hospice. My dearest Angie, if you are reading this, I am gone, and they have made their move. I hoped I was wrong. I hoped that leaving them the bulk of the cash and the stocks would be enough to satisfy their appetite. But Victor has a hole in his soul that money cannot fill, and Celeste believes appearance is the only reality. I have not left you defenseless. I knew that a simple deed might not be enough against the kind of sophisticated rot that has taken hold of our family's finances. You are smart, Angie. You are meticulous, but you play by the rules. They do not. So I have cheated on your behalf. I swallowed hard, tears pricking the corners of my eyes. Even from the grave, he was protecting me. You need to do 3 things immediately. The letter continued. 1. Log into the title watch service I set up for you. The username is your full name. The password is the name of the boat we never bought. Sea spray. 2. Call the number below for Sandbar Legal Group. Ask for Elias Vance. I paid a retainer of $25,000 5 years ago. It is an evergreen retainer. It never expires. Elias knows the history. He is waiting for your call. 3. Watch out for the architect. Victor is weak, and Celeste is vain. But they are not smart enough to build the maze you are likely trapped in. If you see the name Julian Thorne or Sterling Wealth Management in any of the paperwork, do not engage with him. He is the spider. He has been bleeding your father dry for a decade. I gasped. The letter fell into my lap. Julian Thorne. I had just seen that name on the settlement statement less than an hour ago. The managing member of Obsidian Coast Holdings. The buyer of my condo. Harold knew. He had known 3 years ago. He had watched them being bled dry by this advisor. And he had known that eventually, when the liquid cash ran out, the advisor would turn his eyes toward the hard assets, toward the condo. You knew, I whispered to the empty room. You knew they were compromised. I picked up the spiral notebook. It was labeled the map. I opened it. It wasn't a diary. It was a dossier. Harold had spent his final months documenting every vulnerability in my parents' financial life. He had listed their debts, their leveraged positions, and most importantly, the structure of the Sterling Wealth Network. I pulled my laptop out of my bag and tethered it to my phone again. I navigated to the website listed in the notebook for the Title Watch service. I typed in the credentials. Angelina Edwards, Sea Spray. The dashboard loaded. It wasn't the public county record I had seen at the office. This was a private, real-time monitoring service that scraped data from multiple databases. County recording, tax collector, court dockets, and credit headers. The screen flashed red. Alert level, critical. Activity detected in last 48 hours, 7. I only knew about the quitclaim deed and the 2 attempted loans. I clicked on the activity log. Yesterday, 4:45 p.m. Quitclaim deed recorded, Virginia Notary. Today, 9 a.m. Listing agreement uploaded to MLS database. Today, 2:15 p.m. Credit inquiry. Quick draw capital. Hard pull. Today, 2:30 p.m. Mortgage submission, rejected. Today, 2:45 p.m. Mortgage submission, rejected. And then, 2 entries I hadn't seen because I had left the recorder's office. Today, 3:15 p.m. Correction. Deed attempted. Status, blocked by administrative hold. Today, 3:30 p.m. Notice of commencement, renovation. Attempted. Status, blocked by administrative hold. They tried a correction deed, I said, reading the details. Briggs was right. They tried to file a document claiming the first deed had a scrivener's error to bypass the hold. And when that failed, they tried to file a notice of commencement, a document usually filed before construction begins. Why would they file for construction? To create a lien. If a contractor files a lien, it clouds the title. It forces a negotiation. It was another way to lock up the property so I couldn't sell it or refinance it myself. It was a scorching of the earth. But Darla's hold had stopped it all. The administrative hold banner was the shield that Harold had known I would need. I closed the browser and picked up my phone. I dialed the number for Sandbar Legal Group. The phone rang twice. Sandbar Legal, Elias Vance's office, a woman answered. This is Angelina Edwards, I said. Harold Edwards' granddaughter. There was a pause, a shift in the atmosphere on the other end. Ms. Edwards, the voice said. Mr. Vance has a file on his desk labeled with your name. He has had it there since the day your grandfather passed. 1 moment. 10 seconds later, a deep, gravelly voice came on the line. Angelina, Elias Vance said. He didn't sound like a lawyer looking for a billable hour. He sounded like a soldier reporting for duty. I assume the wolves are at the door. They are inside the perimeter, Elias, I said. They forged a deed. They tried to mortgage the property. And now I have a settlement statement showing they are trying to sell it to an LLC controlled by Julian Thorne. Thorne? Elias spat the name out like a curse word. Harold predicted that Thorne manages to stay just on the side of legal with his wealth management schemes, but buying a client's asset through a shell company? That is self-dealing. That is a breach of fiduciary duty, and if he used a forged deed to do it, it is a RICO predicate act. I have an administrative hold on the title, I said, but the sheriff says I need a court order within 48 hours. You will have it in 12, Elias said. I drafted the complaint 3 years ago. Angelina, all I have to do is fill in the dates and the instrument numbers. I am filing for an emergency temporary restraining order, a quiet title action, and a constructive trust over any funds your parents have touched. I have a retainer? I asked, looking at the letter. You have a war chest, Elias corrected. $25,000 earning interest. We don't need to talk about money. We need to talk about service. I am going to have a process server waiting at your parents' gate within the hour, and I am going to serve Julian Thorne at his office. Thank you, Elias, I said. Don't thank me, he said. Thank Harold. He sat in this office for 3 days going over every possible scenario. He loved you very much, kid. Now, sit tight. Let me fire the cannons. I hung up. The relief was physically overwhelming, crashing over me like a wave. I wasn't fighting alone. I had an army. I had a general. But I had one more call to make. The letter mentioned a friend in the HOA board. I looked at the memo. Contact: Samuel Russo. Unit 505. Current board treasurer. I knew Mr. Russo. He was the elderly man who always walked his golden retriever at 6 in the morning. I had no idea he was Harold's confidant. I dialed the number listed in the notebook. Hello? A kindly, older voice answered. Mr. Russo, this is Angelina Edwards, Harold's granddaughter. Angelina, he exclaimed. I was wondering if you would call. I saw the commotion at the gate with your parents. Are you all right? I am safe, I said. But I found a letter from Grandpa. He said to call you if things got complicated. Complicated is one word for it, Russo said, his voice lowering. Listen, I am looking at the board portal right now. I wasn't going to approve it, but you need to know. Know what? Your mother submitted a request yesterday, Russo said, not just for the realtor access. She submitted a request for rapid staging permission. What is rapid staging? I asked. It is a permit we give for vacant units, Russo explained. It allows a staging company to come in, remove all existing furniture, and replace it with rental furniture for sales photos. They wanted to do it tomorrow morning. My blood ran cold. Remove existing furniture? I repeated. Yes, Russo said. The work order listed clean out and removal. They weren't just going to sell the condo. Angelina, they were going to empty it. Your grandfather's telescope, his books, the chair he sat in to watch the ocean. They were going to throw it all in a dumpster to make the place look like a generic hotel room. It wasn't just theft. It was erasure. They wanted to wipe Harold Edwards off the face of the earth. They wanted to sanitize the space so they didn't have to look at the reminders of the man who had judged them and found them wanting. Did you approve it? I asked, my voice trembling with rage. I tabled it, Russo said. I told the board we needed to verify insurance. I bought you 24 hours, but Angelina, the company they hired for the staging, it is called Obsidian Interiors. Obsidian, I said. Like Obsidian Coast Holdings. Exactly, Russo said. It is the same network. They have a staging company, a title company, a lender, and a buyer. It is a closed loop, a clean, efficient ecosystem designed to strip assets and hide the evidence. It is not desperation, I realized, speaking the words out loud for the first time. I thought they were doing this because they were broke and panicked. But this is a procedure. This is a business model. Your parents are the marks, Russo said gently. This Julian Thorne character, he convinced them that liquidation was the only way to save their lifestyle. And he built the machinery to do it. He is eating them alive, and they are thanking him for it. Thank you. Mr. Russo, I said. Don't approve the permit. My lawyer is filing a restraining order tonight. I will hold the line here, Russo promised. Give 'em hell. Angie. I hung up the phone. I looked around the darkening living room. I looked at the telescope standing by the window, the brass gleaming in the twilight. I looked at the worn leather of the armchair. They had tried to take the title. They had tried to steal my identity. They had tried to burden me with debt. And finally, they had planned to come in here and physically erase the memory of the only person who had ever loved me unconditionally. I looked down at the open safe, at the letter, at the notebook. Harold hadn't just left me a condo. He hadn't just left me an asset to be managed. You didn't leave me money, I whispered, running my hand over his handwriting. You left me a map, and I was going to follow it straight to the heart of the beast. I stood up, closing the notebook. I wasn't just a compliance analyst anymore. I was the demolition crew, and tomorrow morning, I was going to bring the whole structure down. I was back at the front counter of the recorder's office, standing next to Deputy Briggs. We were finalizing the attachment of the police report number to the fraud hold when the heavy glass door at the entrance swung open. The air in the room shifted instantly. It wasn't a change in temperature. It was a change in pressure. My father, Victor Langford, walked in. He was wearing his navy blue negotiation suit, the one he wore when he was closing a deal or settling a lawsuit. He carried a leather portfolio under his arm, and his silver hair was perfectly coiffed, though I noticed a sheen of perspiration on his forehead that the air conditioning couldn't quite dry. He didn't look like a man who had just tried to break into his daughter's home. He looked like a man arriving for a board meeting he intended to chair. He didn't see me at first. He walked straight toward the far end of the counter, bypassing the line, projecting the kind of unearned confidence that usually made people step out of his way. "Good afternoon," he boomed, flashing a smile that didn't reach his eyes. "I need to speak with the supervisor. We have a minor clerical error on a filing from yesterday that I need to correct immediately." Darla Klein stepped out from the back, her face like granite. She didn't walk to the section of the counter where he was standing. She walked to where I was standing. "Mr. Langford," Darla said. Her voice was flat. "We don't do corrections at this window, and we certainly don't do them for parties listed on an active fraud alert." Victor froze. He turned his head slowly, and his eyes landed on me. For a second, the mask slipped. I saw genuine shock. He hadn't expected me to be here. He thought I would be at home, crying, or calling my mother for an explanation. He thought I was still the passive daughter who accepted the narrative he wrote for me. "Angelina," he said. He adjusted his grip on the leather portfolio. The shock was replaced by a look of disappointed paternalism. "What are you doing here? Your mother has been trying to call you for 2 hours. We were worried sick." "I bet you were," I said. My voice was steady. I didn't feel the urge to shrink away. I felt the cold, hard floor beneath my feet, especially when the loan application got rejected. Victor sighed, a long theatrical exhalation of patience. He turned his back on me and addressed Darla, lowering his voice to a confidential conspirator's tone. "I apologize for this scene," he said, gesturing vaguely in my direction. "My daughter is well. She is going through a very difficult episode right now. A lot of stress at work, confusion. Celeste and I are just trying to ring-fence her assets to protect her from herself. I have a corrective deed here that clarifies the transfer structure." He started to pull a document from his portfolio. "Put it away," Deputy Briggs said. Victor stiffened. He looked at the uniformed officer standing next to me as if Briggs were a piece of furniture that had suddenly started speaking. "Excuse me?" Victor said. "This is a civil matter. Deputy, families have misunderstandings. I am here to fix the record so the county doesn't get sued for clouding a valid title." "It is not a civil matter," Briggs said. Stepping forward, he placed his hand on the counter, right next to my evidence pile. "It is case number 2026 Alpha 9, identity theft, forgery, and as of this afternoon, attempted grand larceny." "That is absurd," Victor scoffed. He looked at me again, his eyes narrowing. "Angelina, stop this. Stop this right now. You are making a fool of yourself. You are going to ruin your reputation." "You tried to break into my house," I said. "I tried to change a battery," Victor snapped. "The lock was malfunctioning. Your mother wanted to make sure the staging crew could get in tomorrow." "The staging crew," I repeated. "The ones who were going to throw away Grandpa's telescope? The ones hired by Obsidian Coast Holdings?" Victor's face went pale. The name of the shell company hit him like a physical blow. He hadn't known I knew. He thought he was arguing with a confused girl, not an informed adversary. "I have photos. Victor," I said. I didn't call him Dad. I couldn't. "I have photos of the tampered lock casing from this afternoon, and I have the text from Mom." I held up my phone. I had blown up the screenshot of the text message Celeste had sent me earlier. "Don't make a scene. You are ruining your sister's future." "This," Briggs said, pointing to the phone, "combined with your presence at the condo today, constitutes unlawful self-help. You are attempting to physically seize a property that is currently under a fraud investigation that establishes intent. Mr. Langford, it proves you aren't just fixing a typo. You are aggressively trying to liquidate an asset you do not own." "I do own it," Victor hissed, slamming his hand on the counter. The sound echoed through the quiet office. "I have a recorded deed. I have a notarized instrument." "You have a forgery," Darla said. She turned her monitor around so it faced the public side of the counter. The screen displayed the parcel record for my condo, across the top. The bright red banner pulsed. Status: Administrative hold/fraud investigation active. "Look at the screen." "Mr. Langford," Darla commanded. "That red banner means your signature is worthless here. You could have the governor himself sign that corrective deed, and I still wouldn't record it. The chain of title is broken, and until a judge tells me otherwise, Angelina Edwards is the only owner I recognize." Victor stared at the screen. He looked at the red text. He looked at the rejection stamp. He realized, perhaps for the first time in his life, that he couldn't charm his way out of the room. He couldn't bribe the computer system. He turned to me. The aggression melted away, replaced by a desperate, manipulative pleading that was somehow more repulsive than his anger. "Angelina," he said, his voice trembling. "Please, you don't understand the pressure we are under. The market turned. The leverage it turned against us. We just need to bridge the gap, just for 6 months." "So you stole my house," I said. "We borrowed it," he insisted. "We were going to pay it back. We always pay it back. But Page is involved now. If you keep this hold active, if you push this investigation, they are going to look at her. Do you want that? Do you want your sister to have a record?" Paige needs this money, he pressed, his eyes wide and wet. She is in debt. Angie, deep debt. We are trying to save her. I looked at him. I looked at the man who had taught me to ride a bike, the man who had paid for my college, the man who had looked me in the eye at every birthday and told me he was proud of me. And I realized he was using my love for my sister as a weapon to save his own skin. Paige doesn't need money, I said quietly. She needs parents who don't teach her how to commit felonies. Victor flinched. And if you actually loved her, I continued, my voice rising just enough to carry the weight of the accusation, you wouldn't have signed my name. You wouldn't have made her log into that portal. You put her in the line of fire to protect yourself. I did what I had to do for this family, Victor shouted. The facade of the businessman cracked completely. He looked wild. You ungrateful little, I paid for that condo. In spirit. Harold made that money because I managed the logistics company for 10 years. It belongs to me. It belongs to the person on the deed, Briggs said, stepping between us. And that is not you. Victor took a step back, breathing hard. He looked at Briggs, then at Darla, then at me. He saw the walls. He saw the cage he had built for himself. You want to play by the rules? Victor spat, his face twisting into a sneer. Fine, let's play. I handle your taxes. Angelina, I handle the HOA payments. If you block this sale, I will stop the payments. I will let the tax liens pile up. I will let the association foreclose on you. I will bury you in litigation so deep you will be paying legal fees for the next 20 years. Go ahead, I said. My lawyer, Elias Vance, is filing a constructive trust motion tonight and a quiet title action. We are going to audit every penny you handled for the last 5 years. If you stopped paying the taxes, that is just more evidence of your breach of fiduciary duty. Victor's mouth opened, but no sound came out. The name Elias Vance had silenced him. He knew Elias. He knew that Elias was the one lawyer in town he couldn't golf with. Mr. Langford, Deputy Briggs said, his voice dropping to a command baritone, you are causing a disturbance in a government building. You have been advised that the property is under a fraud hold. You have been advised to cease contact. Now I am advising you to leave. Briggs put his hand on his belt. Near his cuffs, it wasn't a threat, but it was a promise. If you remain here for another 10 seconds, Briggs said, I will arrest you for disorderly conduct and obstruction of an active investigation. Walk away. Victor looked at the door. He looked at his leather portfolio, which now seemed ridiculous and heavy. He looked at me one last time. There was no love in his eyes, only the cold, calculating hatred of a narcissist who had been denied his supply. You are dead to us, he whispered. I know, I said. Grandpa told me I would be. Victor turned and walked out. He didn't stride this time. He shuffled. His shoulders were slumped. He pushed through the glass doors and disappeared into the heat of the parking lot. The silence rushed back into the room. My knees felt like water. I reached out and gripped the edge of the counter to keep from sliding to the floor. You okay? Briggs asked. He didn't touch me, but he stood close, offering his presence as a support. No, I said, but I will be. He is scared, Darla observed from behind the glass. I have seen that look before. That is the look of a man who owes money to people who don't file lawsuits. Julian Thorne, I said. He owes Julian Thorne. My phone buzzed in my hand. It wasn't a text. It was an email notification. I looked down at the screen. The subject line made my heart stop, then restart with a powerful, rhythmic beat. From Renee Holt, Harborline title. Subject, preservation confirmed. Ron session video. Ms. Edwards, the download is complete. We have secured the MP4 file of the notarization session dated yesterday. I have reviewed the footage. The person signing the deed is not you, and the person directing the signing from off-camera is clearly audible. I looked up at Briggs. I held up the phone. We got it, I said. We have the video, Briggs smiled. It was a grim, wolfish smile. Then tomorrow isn't just a hearing, he said. It is a movie premiere. I took a deep breath. The confrontation with my father had broken something inside me, severed the last tether of childhood guilt, but it had also forged something new. I wasn't just defending a condo anymore. I was dismantling a lie that had lasted for 30 years. Let's go, I said. I want to hear what my father sounds like when he thinks no one is listening. The sun was beginning to set, casting long, bruised shadows across the parking lot of the recorder's office. But the day was far from over. In fact, the real work, the surgical dismantling of the trap my parents had built, was just beginning. I sat in my car, the engine idling to keep the air conditioning running, and turned my vehicle into a mobile command center. My phone rang. It was Elias Vance. "The emergency temporary restraining order is filed," Elias said. His voice was a low rumble, steady and reassuring. "We got it in before the clerk closed the docket. Case number 2026CV499, Edwards versus Langford, Obsidian Coast Holdings, and does 1 through 10. Does 1 through 10? I asked, typing the case number into my spreadsheet. Placeholders, Elias explained. For everyone else we are going to catch in the net, the notary, the broker, the financial advisor, we are casting a wide net. Angelina, I also filed the lis pendens. The lis pendens, I repeated. Savoring the term, it means suit pending. It is the legal equivalent of planting a flag on the property that says, "Do not touch." It is recorded, Elias confirmed. It effectively nuclear bombs the title. No title insurance company in the country will write a policy on that condo now. The sale to Obsidian Coast Holdings is dead in the water. But we aren't just stopping the sale. We are going on the offensive. What is the next move? I asked. I am sending out cease and desist notices with copies of the TRO attached, Elias said. To the realtor, to the broker, Gavin Sharp, to the staging company, to the HOA. If anyone steps foot on that property for commercial purposes, they are in contempt of court. I am making it toxic. Angelina, I am making it so radioactive that even the pest control guy will be afraid to knock on the door. Good, I said. I want the realtor to know. She was so smug. She won't be smug when she sees a lawsuit naming her brokerage for marketing a property without valid authorization, Elias said. Now, I need you to gather the physical evidence. The paper trail is my job. The ground game is yours. I hung up and looked at the checklist in my notebook. The map my grandfather had left me was no longer just a guide. It was a battle plan. I drove back to Mariner's Key. The drive was a blur of adrenaline and calculation. When I arrived, I didn't go upstairs immediately. I went to the security office. Ortiz was waiting for me. He looked relieved to see me, probably because my father wasn't with me. Ms. Edwards, Ortiz said. Mr. Thorne called. He said to give you whatever you need. I need the incident report regarding my father's attempt to breach the door, I said. And I need the camera logs, entry and exit times for the last 48 hours, every vehicle, every visitor. Ortiz turned to his monitor. I pulled the clip of your father at the door. It is clear as day. He is using a screwdriver to try and pop the battery casing. Put it on a flash drive, I said. That is evidence of intent to commit burglary. I also have the log for the cleaning crew, Ortiz added, handing me a printout. They came yesterday morning, authorized by your mother. They were here for 4 hours. I scanned the log. Clean Pro Services, entry, 8:30 a.m., exit, 12:45 p.m. They weren't just cleaning, I realized. They were prepping. They were clearing out personal items. I took the flash drive and the logs. Thank you, Ortiz. If anyone from my family shows up, anyone, you call the sheriff. You don't call the HOA manager. You call the police. Understood, Ortiz said. I went up to the condo. The hallway was quiet. I approached my door and looked closely at the smart lock. The plastic casing was indeed scratched. The result of my father's frantic, clumsy attempt to force a reset. I took high-resolution photos of the damage from every angle. Then I called a locksmith I had found online, one who offered emergency forensic services. While I waited for the locksmith, I sat on the floor of the hallway and opened my laptop. It was time to close the loop on the notary. Darla had given me the details of the Virginia-based RON platform. I navigated to the website of the Secretary of the Commonwealth of Virginia, Notary Division. I found the Report a Violation portal. I began to type. I attached the forged deed. I attached the affidavit of fraud. I attached the metadata showing the IP address mismatch. Complaint against Notary Commission Number 7, 792. I wrote, nature of violation, failure to verify identity, participation in a fraudulent conveyance, use of compromised credentials. I hit submit. Then I drafted a second email to the legal department of the RON platform itself, to the General Counsel of SignFast Verify. I typed, subject, preservation demand / subpoena inbound. Your platform was used to facilitate a felony. We have secured the video evidence. Be advised that any deletion or alteration of the audit trail associated with transaction ID 9942 will be considered spoliation of evidence and obstruction of justice. I sent it. The digital walls were going up. My phone pinged. It was Renee Holt from Harborline Title. Angelina, I did some digging on the buyer entity. Obsidian Coast Holdings, LLC. I opened the email. Renee was trying to save her own skin now. Proving she was on the right side of history, I ran a cross-reference on the address listed for the LLC in the Delaware Registry. It matches the physical office address of Sterling Wealth Management in Cape Astor. Specifically, Suite 304. But here's the kicker. I checked the tax ID number used to open the escrow account. I scrolled down. The tax ID is linked to a holding company that lists Julian V. Thorne as the sole signatory, and the initial deposit for the escrow, the $10,000 earnest money check, it didn't come from Obsidian, it came from a personal account. The check is signed by Victor Langford. I stared at the screen. My father had written the check to buy his own stolen house. It was a circle, a perfect, corrupt circle. My father pays the deposit to the shell company. The shell company buys the house from my father, using the forged deed, at a discount. The shell company sells the house later for a profit. Julian Thorne takes a cut at every step, and my father gets the quick liquidity he is so desperate for, hiding the asset transaction behind an LLC so the IRS or his other creditors don't see the influx of cash. They were laundering the house. I forwarded the email to Elias Vance and Deputy Briggs. Subject, smoking gun. Victor Langford funded the buyer. Now came the hardest part. The part that made my stomach turn. I had to turn my sister. I looked at the screenshot of the text message Paige had sent earlier. Dad said I was helping you. She was the weak link. She was the authorized user. If I didn't get her on record now, my parents would get to her tonight. They would coach her. They would terrify her into silence. I dialed her number. She picked up on the first ring. She was crying. Angie? She sobbed. Mom says the police are involved. She says you are trying to put Dad in jail. She says I have to delete everything. Paige, listen to me, I said. My voice was sharp, cutting through her hysteria. Stop crying and listen. Mom is lying to you. Mom and Dad are trying to save themselves, and they are using you as the human shield. I didn't mean to, Paige wailed. Dad brought me the laptop. He said the accountant needed me to log in because the trust was in my name too. He said it was just a tax form to move the condo into a different bracket. He said you knew about it, but you were too busy at work to sign. Did you sign my name? I asked. He told me to, Paige cried. He stood right there. He said, just trace it, honey. It is just a formality. He said he does it all the time for his clients. Paige, I said, dropping my voice, that is forgery. That is a felony. And because you used your login, the police think you are the mastermind. No, she screamed. I don't even know what a quitclaim is. I know, I said. I know you don't, but the sheriff doesn't know that. Unless you give me the proof. What proof? The texts, I said. The emails. Did Dad send you instructions? Did he text you the login for the portal? Yes, she sniffled. He texted me the password for the account. Screenshot it, I said. Screenshot everything, every text from Dad about this, every email from the financial advisor, and send them to me, right now. Mom said I shouldn't send you anything, Paige whispered. She said you are having a breakdown. Paige, I said. I am standing in our grandfather's condo with a forensic locksmith and a security guard. I have a restraining order signed by a judge. I have the video of the signing. I am not having a breakdown. I am building a case. If you don't send me those texts, you are going down with them. Do you want to go to prison for Dad's debt? There was a long silence. Then, a small, terrified voice. I am sending them. I stayed on the line until the images started popping into my inbox. Ping, a text from Victor. Use this password. Wealth2026. Don't tell Angie. We want to surprise her with the tax savings. Ping, a text from Victor. Make sure you use the old license I gave you. The system needs the one that matches the original deed date. Ping, an email from Julian Thorne to Paige. Ms. Langford. Please ensure the upload is completed by 4 p.m. so we can fund the Obsidian account. I got them, I said. You did the right thing. Paige, am I going to jail? She asked. Not if I can help it, I said. Stay in your apartment. Don't answer the door for Mom or Dad. If they come over, call me. I hung up. I felt sick, but I also felt a surge of triumph. The clean network my parents had built, the one with the layers of LLCs and professional advisors, had just been dismantled by a 24-year-old girl who didn't know how to keep a secret. The locksmith arrived. He was a quiet man with a heavy tool bag. You want me to change it or preserve it? He asked, looking at the scratched smart lock. Preserve the core, I said. Remove the whole unit and bag it. I want the scratches and the pry marks kept intact. Put on a standard deadbolt for now, one that doesn't use a code. You got it, he said, while he worked. I walked through the condo. I noticed things I hadn't seen in the heat of the moment earlier. There were strips of blue painter's tape on the floor in the living room. Markings. I knelt down. The tape marked the outline of where the furniture currently stood. But there were other marks. Measurements written in grease pencil on the sliding glass door. Remove curtains. Install verticals. They were going to strip the soul out of the place. They were going to turn Harold's sanctuary into a white-walled, soulless box to make it appealing to a corporate buyer. I took photos of the blue tape. I took photos of the grease pencil marks. It wasn't just evidence of a sale. It was evidence of a conspiracy to destroy property. My laptop chimed again. It was Elias Vance. Subject: Hearing set. Angelina. Judge Sterling has granted the emergency docket. We are up tomorrow morning at 9 a.m. Courtroom 4B. The TRO is active. The sheriff has served your parents. They know. Bring the video. Bring the metadata. Bring the texts. This ends tomorrow. I closed the laptop. The locksmith handed me a heavy plastic evidence bag containing the damaged smart lock. He handed me 2 new brass keys. Nobody is getting in without these, he said. This is a high-security cylinder. Can't be picked. Can't be bumped. Thank you, I said. I stood on the balcony for a moment, looking out at the ocean. The sun had set, and the water was a deep, bruising purple. The tide was coming in, relentless and inevitable. My grandfather had told me, the tide doesn't lie. It comes in, it goes out. My parents had tried to build a castle on the sand. They thought they could hold back the water with paper and lies, but they forgot that I was the one who knew how to read the charts. I wasn't afraid of the hearing. I wasn't afraid of seeing them in court. The fear had burned away in the recorder's office. What was left was something colder, harder, and much more useful. I had the video. The email from Renee Holt was burning a hole in my digital pocket. I hadn't watched it yet. I wanted to save it. I wanted to see it for the first time when the judge saw it. I wanted my reaction to be as raw as the evidence itself. Tomorrow, I whispered to the ocean. I locked the new deadbolt. I checked it twice. Then I walked to the elevator, carrying the evidence bag like a trophy. I was going to get a good night's sleep. My parents, I suspected, would not. The courtroom was silent, but it was not the peaceful silence of my grandfather's condo. It was the pressurized silence of a bomb waiting to detonate. I sat at the plaintiff's table next to Elias Vance. My hands were folded on the mahogany surface, right on top of the heavy file folder that contained the autopsy of my parents' betrayal. Across the aisle, my parents sat with a lawyer I did not recognize, a frantic-looking man who seemed to be reading the case file for the first time. Victor looked gray. The arrogance that had propelled him into the recorder's office yesterday had evaporated, replaced by a twitchy, hollowed-out exhaustion. Celeste refused to look at me. She stared straight ahead at the judge's bench, her hands gripping her designer handbag so tightly her knuckles were white. There was a third lawyer present, sitting separately. He represented Julian Thorne and Obsidian Coast Holdings. He looked bored, expensive, and ready to cut his client loose at the first sign of trouble. "All rise," the bailiff announced. Judge Sterling entered. She was a woman in her 60s with sharp eyes and a reputation for despising wasted time. She sat down, adjusted her glasses, and looked at the docket. "We are here on an emergency petition for a temporary restraining order and a quiet title action," Judge Sterling said. "Case number 2026CV499, Edwards v. Langford et al." She looked over her glasses at the defense table. "I have reviewed the initial filings," she said. "I see a warranty deed recorded 2 years ago granting title to the plaintiff, Ms. Edwards, and I see a quitclaim deed recorded 48 hours ago transferring title to the defendants. The plaintiff alleges forgery. The defendants allege what exactly?" My parents' lawyer stood up. "Your Honor, the defendants allege that this was a consensual family transfer for tax planning purposes. We argue that Ms. Edwards is suffering from confusion regarding the transaction." Elias Vance stood up. He didn't shout. He didn't pace. He simply plugged a USB drive into the court's presentation system. "Your Honor," Elias said, "we don't need to argue about confusion. We have the tape." The large monitor on the wall flickered to life. It was the remote online notarization video file that Renee Holt had preserved from the server. The courtroom watched. On the screen, a grainy webcam feed appeared. The date stamp in the corner read 2 days ago. The location tag was masked, but the background showed a plain beige wall. A woman sat in the frame. She had dark hair like mine, but her face was obscured by bad lighting and a low camera angle. She held up a driver's license to the camera lens. "Please state your name," a computerized voice from the notary software requested. "Angelina Edwards," the woman said. The air in the courtroom seemed to vanish. It wasn't my voice. It wasn't even close. It was a rougher, lower voice, and as the camera focused on the ID she was holding, the image on the screen froze. Elias zoomed in. "Your Honor," Elias said, "that is an expired driver's license issued 6 years ago. The plaintiff reported it lost 3 years ago. But more importantly, please listen to the audio at the 10-second mark." Elias played the clip again. He turned the volume up, on the recording. Just before the woman spoke the name, a whisper could be heard from off-camera. A distinct, irritated male voice. "Just hold it steady. We are losing the connection." I looked at my father. He squeezed his eyes shut. "That," Elias said, pointing to the audio waveform on the screen, "is the voice of the defendant, Victor Langford. He is directing an imposter to impersonate the plaintiff." "Objection," the defense lawyer stammered. "Authentication?" "We have the IP logs," Elias countered, slapping a stack of paper on the table. "This video session was initiated from IP address 192.168.1.5. That IP is registered to the residential gateway at the Langford family home, and the device ID used to access the notary portal? It traces back to a laptop registered to Sterling Wealth Management." Judge Sterling looked at the screen, then at my parents. Her expression was one of absolute disgust. Mr. Vance? She said. Are you telling me the defendants used their own home internet to stage a felony forgery? They did, Your Honor, Elias said. And they used a notary employed by the father's own firm. We have a sworn affidavit here from the signing agent at the Service Bureau. She states that she raised a concern about the ID mismatch, but she was overruled by a supervisor who said the packet had to be pushed through to make the closing date. That supervisor is also named in our complaint. Elias turned to the next slide. It was the settlement statement for the sale to Obsidian Coast Holdings. And here is the motive, Elias said. They weren't just transferring the title. They were selling it to a shell company controlled by their financial advisor, Julian Thorne, for $850,000. That is $350,000 below market value. The judge looked at the numbers. Asset stripping, she murmured. Precisely, Elias said. They forged the deed to steal the house, then sold it to themselves through a shell company to extract the equity in cash, funded by a deposit check from the defendant himself. Elias put the image of Victor's check on the screen. The silence that followed was total. My mother was weeping now. Quiet, terrified sobs. My father was staring at the table, his face a mask of defeat. This was not a tax plan, Elias concluded. This was a liquidation, and they tried to hang the liability on the plaintiff's younger sister. Elias held up the printouts of Paige's text messages. We have evidence that Paige Langford was instructed to log into the portal under false pretenses, Elias said. She was told she was signing tax documents. She has cooperated fully with the investigation and provided these transcripts. She is a victim of manipulation, not a co-conspirator. Judge Sterling leaned back in her chair. She looked at the defense lawyer. Counsel, she said, do you have anything to say that doesn't involve the Fifth Amendment? The lawyer looked at Victor, then at the judge. He closed his file. No, Your Honor. Judge Sterling picked up her pen. The scratching sound as she wrote on the order form was the only sound in the room. I am granting the temporary restraining order, she announced, her voice ringing with authority. I am converting the fraud hold on the title into a judicial order. The quitclaim deed recorded as Instrument 2026499 is hereby declared void ab initio, invalid from the start. The title remains vested solely in Angelina Edwards. She looked at the lawyer for Obsidian Coast Holdings. I am also issuing a preservation order for all assets held by Obsidian Coast Holdings and Sterling Wealth Management pending a forensic audit, she said. If your client tries to move a single dime offshore, I will hold him in contempt and issue a bench warrant for his arrest. Then she turned her eyes to my parents. Mr. and Mrs. Langford, she said, the Sheriff's Department has already flagged this file. I am referring the transcript of this hearing and the video evidence directly to the District Attorney's Office. You are looking at charges of aggravated identity theft, forgery of a public record, and mortgage fraud. But my daughter, Victor started to say, half standing. Sit down, Judge Sterling snapped. You don't have a daughter right now. You have a plaintiff, and I am issuing a no-contact order effective immediately. You are not to approach Ms. Edwards. You are not to approach the property. You are not to contact her by phone, email, or third party. If you violate this, you will be incarcerated pending trial. She slammed her gavel. Court is adjourned. The sound of the gavel was like a thunderclap clearing the air. It was over. The lie was dead. I stood up. I felt light, as if gravity had released its hold on me. Elias Vance shook my hand. His grip was warm and solid. You did good, kid, he said. Harold would be proud. We stopped the sale. The title is clean. What happens to them? I asked. Looking at my parents, they were arguing with their lawyer, their faces twisted in panic. The criminal investigation will take months, Elias said. They will probably take a plea deal to avoid prison, but their financial lives are over. The audits will uncover everything Julian Thorne did. The house of cards is gone. I walked out of the courtroom. In the hallway, I saw Deputy Briggs. He nodded to me. We picked up the notary an hour ago, Briggs said. He is talking. He gave us Julian Thorne. Thank you, Deputy, I said. For listening. You brought the receipts, Briggs said. That is all that matters. I walked out of the courthouse and into the bright, blinding sunshine. I didn't go back to work. I didn't go to my apartment in the city. I drove straight to Mariner's Quay. When I arrived, the security guard, Ortiz, saluted me as I drove through the gate. The locksmith's van was gone. The cleaning crew was gone. The for sale listing had already been pulled from the internet. I had checked on my phone in the elevator. I unlocked the door with the new brass key. It turned smoothly. I walked inside. The blue painter's tape was still on the floor, marking the spots where my parents had planned to erase my grandfather's memory. I spent the next hour peeling it off, strip by strip. I scrubbed the grease pencil marks off the sliding glass door. I put Harold's books back on the shelf where they belonged. I uncovered the telescope. Then, I opened the balcony door and stepped out. The sun was setting, painting the sky in violent shades of orange and violet. The ocean was loud today, crashing against the shore with a rhythmic, primitive power. The salt air filled my lungs. I sat in Harold's chair. I didn't feel happy. Happiness is a fleeting thing, a sugar rush. What I felt was something deeper, something heavier and more permanent. I felt safe. I had faced the people who were supposed to protect me, and I had realized they were the wolves. I had used the system they tried to weaponize against me, and I had turned it into a shield. I had followed the map my grandfather left in the blue drawer, and it had led me home. My phone buzzed. A text from Paige. I am sorry. Angie, I really am. Can I call you someday? I looked at the message. I didn't reply. Not yet. Forgiveness was a heavy door, and I wasn't ready to unlock it. But at least I knew she was free from them too. The chain was broken. I looked out at the horizon, where the water met the sky. I won. Grandpa, I whispered. I won by paper. And for the first time in my life, the property wasn't just a place I visited. It was mine, recorded, verified, and defended. The tide came in, washing away the footprints on the sand below. But up here, on the 4th floor, everything was exactly where it was supposed to be. Thank you so much for listening to this story of betrayal and justice. If you enjoyed seeing Angelina take down the scammers and reclaim her legacy, please take a moment to scroll down and leave a comment telling me where you are listening from. I love seeing our community grow from all corners of the world. And don't forget to subscribe to Emma Revenge Stories. Hit that like button to support the channel, and smash the hype button so this story can be recommended to more people who need to see justice served. See you in the next video.